more now than we have all the rest of the time.
Let's see. It's just content. Or do we start the episode?
I've pressed record, but we haven't really started anything yet.
Okay.
You were gone.
Yeah, the dog was acting weird, so you can throw some food at her and she'll be fine.
Dog was dogging.
Dog was dogging, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the best bases. Those bases are freaking awesome.
So his bases do kick ass.
All right, do you want to start a podcast?
Sure, if we have to. All right.
If we have to. We got all dressed up. Going to pack a fight.
What? You're wearing pants? I'm not wearing pants.
Yeah, I'm down in the basement. It's 65 degrees down here.
Hey, sorry, I'm gonna tangent before we start.
SNAFU. Situation normal. All fouled up. This is SNAFU.
All right, welcome to episode 73, where Jeff talks about Cub Foods. Something like that.
That wasn't in the episode.
No, that probably should be in the episode.
Put it at the end if you want. I didn't.
No one listens that far.
Yeah, who's listened to the end of one of these things?
People fall asleep listening to us, obviously.
I do like the fact that as checking the downloads for episode 72, part 1 and 2, and like part 2 has got like twice the downloads of part 1.
Interesting. Caught people at a good time or something.
Hey, I have a suggestion, Pat. One of these episodes, at the end of it, you should just put some audio from World Series of Poker. So, like, nostalgia for people that fell asleep in the early 2000s. You wake up on ESPN, still got like World Series of Poker at like 4 a.m.
That was me, dude.
That was me.
Totally did that.
I did that all the time.
I would watch. What was it? I would Cheers. Was Cheers? I'd fall asleep during Cheers. I don't remember what happens after that.
Tonight Show usually.
Is it Tonight Show? Yeah, it was usually Tonight Show. You're right. I think it's right.
Yeah.
And then
Instant tangent. Look at that.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah. We haven't even started yet. I'll just restart this shit.
Amazing.
Oh no, you started.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to episode 73, Tangent Town. Let's talk about hobby.
Is that like Lazy Town?
Well, Lazy Town. We've been Lazy Town for a while now.
We have.
We just kind of sending that check in all day long.
Have you ever painted an entire bolt action army in a week? Would you like to?
Tournament organizers hate it when you do this one thing. Wow, we can do all sorts of clickbaity shit. All right. Everyone say hi.
This list won 4 tournaments.
Yeah, it's now a net list.
See what Dale did for hobby this week. Number 4 will surprise you.
And then you never find number 4.
No, it's not in there. That's just, there is no number.
Or it crashes. We just stop the podcast right then and there. All right. Say hi, Dale.
Hey, guys.
Say hi, Pat.
Hey.
Say hello, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
Yeah, okay. So literal. It's great. I love it. All right, let's talk about some hobby stuff. Because I've done a little. Nice. I kind of got a little bit of a slow start this week. I'm putting together some terrain for a table.
Nice.
The slow part was that somebody used all the white glue in our house. I have no idea. Like, somebody must have ate it all. I have no idea what happened to it. But we didn't have any.
You got 4 of them, so...
Yeah.
5.
I'm really kind of curious what happens if they eat it. I actually don't really want to know. Probably don't want to know.
Well, that's supposed to be non-toxic if it's like the Elmer's white glue.
Yeah, but if you eat enough of anything, it becomes toxic.
I wouldn't recommend it as pouring it on your Frosted Flakes.
Well, do you keep toxic levels of Elmer's glue in your household, Rick?
That's a good question. I don't know what a toxic level of Elmer's glue is.
No,
so
I don't think you do.
Probably not. No, I don't think they actually ate it.
I'm pretty sure if you were having issues related to that, you would have stumbled upon one of your children in a pretty interesting
You would a Spider-Man impression in the bathroom.
I was like, what happened in this diaper? My God. Like,
they're shooting out their ass and swinging on the walls and stuff. And so.
They do that anyway. That's not abnormal for my children. Anyway, so that's what I did this week, and I'm working on garden stuff right now because it's that time of year.
It is that time of year.
Yeah. How about you, Dale? What are you working on? Anything special?
I've got a couple of tanks, 5 actually, sitting in my queue.
That's right.
They're next in the queue. I finished up my captains for my board game, and I'm halfway through the first faction that I want to finish painting. So I'm hoping to finish it this weekend, which means I'll probably bump the tanks up, at least the 2 that I need for the event coming up.
We'll talk
I'll
about
get
that
those done. So, but that means I have to go down into my hobby basement and find my German tank paints, and hopefully they're still able to get through my airbrush, but we'll see what happens.
Well, someone on our Discord talked about the sawzall or the jigsaw with a clamp in it.
Yeah, I've got a
do
little test tube centrifuge.
Yeah, I've got one of those
that
too.
I use for my paints.
I can't remember what they call them. Yes, it's you push down on it and it vibrates. It spins it around real tight. Yeah. Right? Is that the one you got?
Yeah. When I'm really bored, I'll sit on it, but I haven't had to do that in a long time.
I don't know if mine is finicky. Mine is really finicky about like what I can, like how I put the bottles onto it. Like sometimes it doesn't want to spin.
Oh, I thought you were going a hard left on that one.
No, I was ignoring. I was just going right past what
it's
Dale
called
said.
a mini vortex mixer.
Yeah, it's a vortex mixer. That's what
it's like $75 or something like that.
So
yeah,
they're fantastic.
Yeah. I was just saying, I found them even cheaper.
Yeah, I think I got mine on sale or something for like $45.
Like Prime Days are coming up. It might be in Prime Days if you want a vortex.
That I might actually look at that because I'm sick of having to
feverishly shake. Shit out of stuff.
Well, so this other technique, and I've seen people do this, is so you take the blade out of a jigsaw, and you know what kind of clamps I'm talking about. It's like it's got a long bar on it, and then it has like a sliding clamp,
like a furniture clamp.
Maybe. It's pretty common clamp.
Yep.
Yeah, but it has a long, skinny bar.
Yep.
So you stick that in the where the blade goes, and then you tighten it all up, and then you clamp on. You just clamp a bottle of paint inside the clamp, and then you just and then you just give it a good pull on the trigger, and it shakes the living crap out of your paints.
Well, yeah.
I mean, right? I mean, the idea is great. I'm sure. I very apprehensively tell people to not probably play with power tools that way, but
check the manufacturer's intent.
Yeah, that avoids your warranty for sure. Yeah. But just
we're
don't
the reason
launch.
They have to put warning labels on things.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna launch a freaking paint bottle across your room at one point, and then that's on you, man. Like that's. I've exploded shit all over myself once. It's fun.
So do you actually have to have your buddy there so you can say, "Here, hold my beer" before you try that?
No, start recording.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is now. Here, push record on this.
Yeah. My TikTok.
Dude, you get it?
Yeah, that's the thing you ask first. It's not, are you okay, or do I need to call an ambulance?
Well, it's like, the cameraman's always, I got it.
But
so
no,
you were
that's
working on Dale. Okay, you were working on stuff.
Yeah. But no, that's where my stuff is at. So
good luck finding those paints. If it's anything like my hobby shit, it's a disaster. So
it's I think I'm actually in a decent state downstairs. It's just that I've got so much hobby stuff there. I just have to figure out which bin is for this stuff.
Dude, I'm serious. I'm debating trying to put together a get rid of hobby garage sale. Get rid of all sorts of crap that I don't need. Yeah, sure. Like whatever you want to call it.
They just had one. They just had one in Little Canada. I saw it in the Frozen North group. So
why didn't you say anything?
Because I just saw it when we were tangenting earlier. So
when you're looking at Steam games, like trying to figure out what your next game is. All right. So anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. So that was a good long tangent there. So Pat, what are you working on these days?
So I did take out My Americans again, and then the old wounds crept back in, and I set them back down. I was going to finish them up that were originally slated for the WTC before things. I'm like, you know what? Let's stop with the miniatures and let's do some terrain. I got the board that I'm working on for Operation SNAFU, which is the Great Escape board. I had ordered and put together for the buildings and the fences and some of the towers, and I kind of laid everything out on the table, and then realized the other buildings I needed to order, so I ordered another $200 worth of Sarissa crap. I mean, sorry, it's not crap, it's good, but this board's already at like $400, and it's not even put together yet. So
they do a lot with that crap. It's still crap. It's a fucking MDF board. But they do a lot with what they got.
After your third, fourth, fifth board, everything that keeps coming for the next ones doesn't turn into crap. It's just more crap. Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I'm not saying the quality of it is crap. I'm just saying it's just more crap that I have.
More shit on your shelf somewhere.
Clutter.
Yeah. It's clutter. It's just more stuff.
Right.
To
We've
paint.
all got boxes of miniatures. They're not crap, but it's just more crap that's sitting there.
But I literally label it all crap. Like,
yes.
It's hobby crap. Okay, great.
So I got some more crap, and now I should have enough crap to get this board mostly done and then I'll have to do some woods and stuff like that just to help flush it out and get some roads in there.
Just make sure you don't Amber Heard the table.
Wow.
It's all that crap.
Right, sure.
It was the cat, dude.
So, yeah.
Dog. It was a dog. Sorry.
I'm excited to see the table.
I am too. It's and I did actually. So I think I mentioned last time that I got their barbed wire fence kits, which they have. Sure. You can download a PDF, which will print out on like overhead projector sheets.
Oh yeah, you were talking about that, yeah.
Yeah, and so when I did order it this time, I made sure I got those in there, and I was able to download them, which is nice. It had some trouble when I was trying to download them.
Have you
free.
Found projector sheet
paper
paper somewhere?
Do you have an overhead projector, Pat?
No, but Amazon still
projector.
sells the sheets because other people in the world still use overhead projectors for things.
Jesus Christ! I just had a vision of like Indiana Jones in some old temple grabbing an overhead projector instead of that little gold statue.
It belongs in a museum.
So do you. So I printed them out, and I think it'll work. I'll give it a try. I did a couple tests, glued them in place, and then went, wait, I should probably paint these before I glue these in place.
Yep.
Okay, so. But fortunately, it was a piece that I didn't need to use for the table, so. And proof of concept, and now I got most of those put together. I think I still have two guard towers to put together and paint, so. It's getting close. I figure maybe end of July-ish, depending on how motivated I stay.
Nice.
So.
That's plenty of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Jeff, how about you? What are you working on these days?
So I don't remember on the last hobby update if I already had that Hurtgen Forest Kickstarter yet or not.
I
think you had backed it, but I don't think.
Yeah, I think you had it yet.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think you'd gotten any of the stuff yet.
So the first phase of that came out,
yes.
which is all the stuff that was initially like proposed in the Kickstarter. None of the stretch goals or whatever, and that's perfectly fine because you want them to take their time. So anyway, that came out, and I fired up the 3D printer, and I printed 60 infantry out of that.
Jeez.
And then
that's right.
Painted 30 of them.
Nice.
So I got a new American Army done. Printed a couple tanks for some of the guys in the club. Printed myself a Chaffee. Did a resin turret on it because I wanted to see if I could, and it worked out really well.
Nice.
And
Chaffee's such a good tank.
It is. It really is. Went through and hunted through the Dewey Cat selection on Wargaming 3D and printed a few of the artillery pieces he designed. Mm-hmm. Quite a few of them, actually.
Nice.
So I got those painted up. So another truck for the Army, too. So a lot of painting and printing of armies. And then looked at a calendar and started having a panic attack about getting the 2 tables I have to get done for SNAFU. So
146 days as we record.
Yeah. Well, one of them's all printed. I just got to paint it. The other one I need to print, and it's about 30 days of print time. So.
Whoa.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of buildings, and
are you doing the resin printer on those, or is that the buildings are still the MDF?
That's going to be FDM printing for the buildings.
There you go. Right letters, wrong position.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. Just because some of the smaller stuff I think I might try to do on the resin printer just to speed things up. Having 2 printers running is much faster than 1 printer.
One would argue almost twice as fast.
Almost twice as fast, yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, even with the Saturn, some things are too big to fit in the resin printer. So, you kind of just have to see what goes and what doesn't. But yeah, so
are you still able to? Are you still slicing the files to different sizes and whatnot, or are you just taking whatever files are?
It depends on what the file is. A lot of the stuff I back is in 28mm 156 scale, which is nice, so I don't really have to resize anything. Yeah. The infantry out of that Hurtgen Forest Kickstarter, One guy started, it was supposed to be 156. When people started printing it, they're like, this looks a little bit big. And so then they're like, well, maybe scale it down to 95%. And I was like, well, I already printed 60 guys, so fuck.
You just got the taller guys of the platoon.
It's close enough. If you don't mix and match, you won't notice the difference. Sort of like playing with Perry miniatures where they're just a little thinner.
Right.
As long as you don't mix and match, no problem. So, and they look really nice. So I'm pretty happy with them as far as 3D printing. So yeah, so a shitload of hobby printing and painting. And
God, I gotta get my printer going, but I just can't find anything. I did run my printer a month, within the last month, but nothing for bolt action. I decided to finally catch up some of the old game pieces I had promised and some components to upgrade. So
Yep.
So
yeah, well, I've been printing knickknacks for my nephews and nieces on it, and a phone holder for the car for my wife, and odds and ends like that. So I need to get it back, and a couple tanks for the guys. But I have 8 spools of filament here ready to go for this next project. So
wow.
Well, you don't want to like run out and then not be able to get your filament.
I would agree with that.
So best to be prepared ahead of time.
Which reminds me, I should probably order at least another spool just in case I get crazy and find something I need to print.
Well, I mean, if you're ever looking for things to print, I can send you a few of those files to print that I have. That
I could print some stuff off for you. Mine's just sitting there doing nothing anyway.
I might look into doing that just to speed things up here a little bit. But
outsource it to Maple Grove.
Mm-hmm.
Surprised you don't have like 6 more printers already, Jeff. If you get those printers printers. Right?
If I were going to do it as a job or even a side business, I would absolutely get a couple more and print farm stuff. But when you're just soloing it for hobby stuff, at a certain point, I mean, you guys got tubs of unpainted miniatures. I got tubs of unpainted shit I printed on that printer. And like some of it I toss because it's like if this print didn't come out right, you're like, okay, this is junk now, and it's like you feel bad wasting anything, but some stuff is crap.
That's 40 cents. Sure.
Yeah, don't worry. It just ends up in an ocean somewhere.
That's why I hate.
Yeah, no big deal.
Adding garbage. I hate adding garbage like
just
that.
burn it, Jeff. Then it's fine.
There we go. Yeah. Well, PLAs they say is theoretically biodegradable, although I don't really think it is.
Jesus, what's the time frame on that?
I don't know. Something between a banana and plutonium. I'm not quite sure.
You look at a banana wrong, it disintegrates. Yeah. I mean, sure, if you give anything enough time, it's going to biodegrade, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think they're waiting for some plastic-eating microbe to be developed before that really becomes biodegradable.
We're not that far away, but I'm worried what happens if that gets out in the wild.
Well, it eats
That's
all
what scares the
plastic.
shit out of me. Yeah, it eats all the plastic.
All
That's
the
the problem. Right? We don't have any plastic left. Cars are just falling apart.
It's going to be something like that wrecks civilization.
Obviously.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I'm building everything out of wood and brick, and I'm one of the 3 little piggies.
My biggest concern, outside of actual real crises that we're experiencing, is that Google engineer who spoke out and said that one of their
sentient
one
AI?
of their algorithms had become
Yeah.
sentient. I'm just like, you absolute moron.
Did you? Yeah. Did you read? Did you read the?
Well, no, because I do software and coding and all the rest of that shit, and I've
Right.
sat and thought quite a bit about that whole quote unquote problem, and it's just like no.
it actually gets scarier when you read this transcript, though.
Well, I mean, it's
Like,
I would like to stay in a good mood if we could.
I mean,
That's the positive, cheerful, upbeat stuff. Let's talk about WTC again.
It's not connected to the defense grid, so we'll be fine.
no, yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not playing war games or anything
Not
yet.
Skynet.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
nuclear war.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's not doing.
I
any
mean,
of that
all
shit
of
yet.
that. It's all instructions. That's all it is. So
I would presume that it is probably all instructions. It's getting kind of
it's
scary
100% all instructions. So there's no way that code can generate other code that it isn't explicitly instructed to do so. So, anyways,
okay.
All right. Well, we'll know when the Terminator comes back.
We can have another podcast about crazy tech shit.
yeah.
I just hope.
And we could talk shit about stuff we don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, we don't understand it well enough, but yeah, kind of crazy stuff.
Isn't
there.
that like 90% of podcasts?
Yes, not well researched.
Yeah, I feel like it's one great big sigh. Everyone lets out a sigh because we all realize that we're all just as not stupid, but uninformed as everyone else.
Yeah,
So,
Sure. Yeah.
It's like a
there's the
collective
other
group
person-
hug.
And there's the other percent of people that are panicking now because they've just realized that they think Skynet exists. Just saying, like we might do. Don't panic, anyone. Just find your towel and you'll be fine.
I was just going to say.
I always need to know where your towel is.
Yeah.
That's a
Good.
really
All
good
right.
reference.
I get some nerd cred a little bit.
We don't have enough of. We gotta start working in more of that.
Okay, well, I got one tonight. I got the scoreboard for the first one.
Nope.
All right. We've done hobby. We all actually did some stuff. This is well done, you guys.
Yeah. Hey.
I'm a little bit frightened of Dale's all sorts of tinky thing, but we'll.
I'm excited to see what.
Rick, let me know if you need some glue.
I got glue. I went to the store and got glue,
Okay.
guys. I've got all the glue I could possibly need.
Now, did you buy like
Until-
the little? Did you buy the little pack? Hey, my kid's going back to elementary school size. Or did you buy like the giant gallon jug? They sell at
I
Lowe's?
like using the smaller ones because I got small hands, so it's just kind of nice to not have the giant bottle and like the risk of what happens if that little bottle gets out into the wild versus a giant bottle of glue is like, I'll take
Yeah.
my chances. I buy 3 little ones and hide 2 of them, versus having the giant bottle of the gallon size
Yep.
bottle of glue end up on the floor or some shit like that because that's what would happen.
I
It's
went to
inevitable.
I went to get some more of the Loctite gel, which I usually use for my plastic miniatures.
Yeah,
and whatnot. That doubled in price all of a sudden.
Yep.
Yeah, just
It was
welcome.
like $10 a bottle. I'm like, are you kidding me? This
Where
is
did-
like just like $4.
Where did you go?
Michael's, which is usually where
Well,
I buy it, where it's
yeah.
usually dirt cheap.
You might
I'm
be able to
hoping
get
it's
it.
just on the wrong peg.
You might be able to get a little better from Home Depot. So.
Yeah, I was gonna
that's,
say Home
that's
Depot.
that's my second go-to.
My go-to was Target actually, and it was I don't know what I haven't bought a bottle for a little bit because I usually buy 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah. It was all sold out at my local Target, but I invested heavily about 8 months ago and bought like 6 packs of it. So
Yeah, and I found that as long as you don't crack them, like you don't,
it's fine. Yep.
It's fine. It lasts forever.
Once
but
you
as soon
crack
as
them, they're
yeah.
good for like, what do you think? Like a month, maybe.
Month,
maybe.
yeah.
Oh, if
yeah.
you're lucky.
Anything longer, and
Yeah.
it's a goo. and it
Depends how
doesn't
much you use
stick
and how many
shit.
times you want to
Yeah.
cut the tip back
Yep.
down to
Yep.
get the glue out.
It's a
Yeah.
brisk.
If you're cracking a new one, you want to make sure that you've got a couple of boxes of miniatures put together.
Yep.
Yeah, you want
Exactly.
you want to do it all, or just expect to have to get a new one. I also finally started taking them apart. Did you not know that? Have you taken them apart when you're done? Because there's like still 15 to 20% of the glue left in the bottle.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you take the plastic piece off, there's a shit ton of glue still in it. It
Well,
feels very
that's-
wasteful.
For me, that's a recipe for real issues. So
Tail's going to come in Thursday. He's just got 3 parts of the bottle glued to his hand.
Maybe put the cap
part of
back
it's
on
on my face. And
the Craggle.
Here we go. Amazon's got a 6-pack for $17.
That
There
is
you
go.
a steal.
Yeah.
There you
That's
go.
good.
That's significantly better than whatever Michaels is trying to do right now.
Yes. I also like also for the metal models. Again, those I like using the professional liquid.
Oh, interesting.
I like using those for the metal models.
I use the living shit out of the gel, and I just use a shit ton of accelerator. It's great. I
say
just
that.
giving
I
myself
use-
Gel
chances.
just hasn't worked well.
I use a little bit of sticky tack, and
Okay.
and then
Yes.
whatever adhesive.
Yep.
So for my
That sticky
metal
tack works
minis.
good because it holds it good, and then like when it mixes with the whatever adhesive you're using, it makes a really good hard bond.
Yeah.
I just
a hard
weld
bond.
that. I just weld that shit together with with the accelerator. So it just makes that shit super hot. It's great. It's fun. All right. This one caught me for a loop. I don't know if you guys if we've gotten an official answer on it yet, but we had a rules question come up on Discord that I don't think has. I don't know if it has a great answer yet.
Discord?
Didn't it come from Discord?
Facebook even.
Oh, it was Facebook. You're right. It was
Yeah,
Facebook.
it was
I'm
Facebook,
sorry.
and the answers people were giving the fellow ranged all over the damn place. So
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here's the scenario. You have a artillery piece with HE on ambush, so not in direct fire, but is actually going to fire an HE shot at a unit. The way ambush rules are written or are read allows you to stop a unit at any time during their movement to shoot at them.
yep,
So it's advantageous sometimes to not shoot right away, but to shoot during their move because there's no cover or whatever. Like there's usually an opening, you get a bit of opportunity.
Or you can get them at point blank, or
Right, closer or whatever. Yes, lots of different options as to why you would want to wait to shoot versus that. However, with HE, you have a template, and there's no as far as I know, Pat, you correct me if I'm wrong. There's no rules in the book that tell you how these two things interact.
No.
Like, how do you move a unit? Like, how do you place a template?
So it's really however they move the unit, and you pause them
You stop
at whatever
them
point
during their movement
that you want to fire.
Yep.
And so, however they're moving the unit, and honestly, what I don't like about this is, if it's a friendly game, it's really easy to abstract it. But I understand when you're in high pressure tournament games that you want to get it exactly right.
Like, advantageous to you.
It is really slows things down if you're like, okay,
You basically
next inch,
do a
okay,
stop
the next
motion.
inch.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a claymation thing.
Yep.
Yep.
Right. Like, move that unit, because that's the thing. And also in a tournament play, the optimal thing is going to be, all right, I'll conga line my shit out.
Yep.
Yes.
You know, it's never going to be anything more than 1 or 2 models, maybe 3 models.
And if they're doing that, I think they're probably not getting all their models where they want to be in the next stage anyway. You know, if you're looking at getting, you want half your units to be manning an obstacle so they can fire over it without taking the penalty. You know, if they're doing the conga line, they're probably not going to have the full movement to do that.
Yep.
So, but it's you just stop them and they move however they want to. I really wish there's more of an abstraction to it, just because it is probably the slowest point in a game.
Right.
So what would the recommendation be moving forward if they were to...
I would consider the unit to move forward in its current footprint.
Yeah, it's like you can place a template, that's the footprint it would be in
Yeah.
during its movement.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, like there's the unit, you know, they might be total of 3 inches long, 2 inches wide might be the cluster of guys, and just consider that their footprint and have them move it. Just for the ease and speed of the game, I think you should just move that and not be a total D-bag about the thing. You know, it's like, okay, if you were there and I hit you, okay, now because I'm an ambush, I get the advantage of the open shot, so we'll take that off.
So
That's how I would do it.
So take the shot, just don't count any cover modifier.
Right.
Well, as long as there's an opportunity during the shot that there was no
Yes.
cover, right?
Right.
Like, if they're behind cover the whole time, then they get cover, but...
Yep.
Or if
It's-
they are going to end up in point blank, i.e. they're charging you.
Right. Then you're all, yeah. Oddly enough, this is one of the few scenarios that version 1 probably worked better with
I
the
agree.
non-template.
I
Like,
Yeah.
agree.
Yep.
and actually, maybe that's what they just need to do is like, okay, it's D6 hits or whatever.
D3
you know,
hits or D6, depending how big your HE is.
Right. Yeah, something like that, where it's like you get a certain number of hits total.
Yep.
Right. That would super speed it up.
So
and
the
that would
only
make
thing
it
that was bad about version 1 doing that is they didn't have the each model can only be hit once caveat in there.
well,
So you'd
okay.
have 2-man squads getting hit with the 3-inch HE, which is 3d6, getting hit 8, 12 times. It's like, well, okay, come on.
I'm okay with that. I would be okay with them adding that to it, but like for the sake of speed and like not trying to have to figure out where the templates are, like okay, I'm
Yeah,
shooting an
I like
ambush
that
and you're
better.
moving. Yeah,
I-
just a
I-
number of D6 hits.
Good
Yeah,
suggestion.
based on
Let's
the
go
size.
with that. Maybe I'll slide that in my tournament pack.
You know, if you're looking for the fastest rule, since they're moving, you just always make it a D3, and it's -1 if it's a light, and +1 if it's a medium, and +2 if it's a heavy artillery, 3-inch. Does that make sense? So you're always doing either 1 to 5. Does that make sense? 1 to 5. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
And you're only rolling one dice. I mean, one size dice ever. I don't know.
Or you put the template down on the table and they have to run around it or run through it and take a hit. I mean, it's like smoke, but it's a damaged smoke, right? You're like, all right, this is where I'm going to land my HE. Now either run around it or run through it. It would be an obstruction then.
You chose poorly.
Yeah, you would absolutely always be the case.
Yeah.
It would be not probably enough of an obstruction to make that worthwhile.
No. But something with a randomized number, I think, is the way to go. Some
Yeah.
form of that is the way to go for that.
Right, because it's not punishing either side, and it's not making anyone feel gamey or anything else.
And
It's
it
just
doesn't slow everything way the hell down.
yeah, especially since nobody, apparently this is not really in the books, so it'd be really hard to find.
Yep. Yeah, and
It's not.
people say this is a corner case, but I actually could see this happening quite often, particularly if you were, ever playing on WTC style boards that have lots of open terrain like that.
You just like can shoot anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, in most cases, right, there people are probably. It probably is a little more fringe because, right, people have maybe saved their HE shots for vehicles, where the template doesn't matter then, right? It's not used typically all big-ass models and big-ass units, but I could definitely see this being happening more frequently than.
Yeah.
Like, I'm surprised it's taken this long for someone to ask us about this.
Yeah. I
Yeah, well,
agree.
keep in mind, it also has to be a direct fire because you can't.
Right. No indirect. Yeah. You can't
Yeah.
ambush indirect. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I say it's a WTC table thing where there's all that fucking open terrain.
Yes, there is.
Something like that. Anyway, that's enough of that. But yeah, I agree. Just
Interesting.
interesting.
That one took me for a loop because it was like I looked it up and I was like, oh no, that's not ambush. That's stand and fire.
Yeah, reactionary fire. Yeah.
Yeah. Reaction fire. Yeah.
And that one is you take the shot wherever they are right now,
Yep.
cover,
Right, and-
whatnot. And if you have a weapon that's out of range, it's treated as long range for its shots. But yeah,
Actually, that might be the other solution, Pat.
It's just shoot right away.
You just shoot right away, but if they're going to cross open ground, they don't get cover. Like you said, the original footprint thing.
Right.
Sure. Yep.
You just place the tempo right away.
Yep.
And then it's wherever on the line that would have been. It's
Yep.
like that's your footprint. So
I think either of those could work.
yeah. Anything would be better than nothing.
Yeah, anything's better than the current rules, which is
dude, basically two guys
Good luck, figure it out.
yeah.
or conga line action. Like, really, you're doing that? Come on.
Right. Either way is
Even at a conga line, you should always hit 3 guys. I think.
I mean, they're not the Tusken Raiders. You're not hiding your numbers with a single file there.
You say that, but
Yeah, but I actually kind of feel like they might. You don't normally run like in a mob. If they're crossing open ground, they're going to try and run more single file-ish, I would think. That's
No,
probably
not really.
depends. All depends.
You want to get that next set of cover as fast as possible. You don't want to wait for the guy in front of you to get hit so you trip over him.
No, you're using the guy in front of you as cover, though, Pat.
Well, I
right.
guess
Yeah,
that's
he's soft cover. See, like it is very important to have soft cover all the
Well,
time.
depending on the bullet, he may be hard cover. He may stop all the bullet.
Jeez.
I don't. I don't think that how was it done in reality is much of a consideration in my opinion. So, it's
That's fair.
After seeing competitive play, not seeing competitive play, but seeing the prevalence of conga line movement for certain kinds of armies, I totally understand why they do it that way. So, yep, it's all right.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Moving on. All right, Pat. Let's talk about the event that Dale is going to.
Jeff's going too.
Yeah.
Jeff is going. I'm sorry that I'm not going. I really am sorry that I'm not going. I will be at a
Elsewhere
cabin
with stuff.
Well, I'll be at a cabin with my wife and children.
A cabin in the woods.
Yes, I was. The captain of my house told me that I will be going to this thing. She snapped to and
Snap Rick to action.
and it was like, yes, sir. We are going to go to a cabin and enjoy ourselves and stuff.
You will have fun now.
Mandatory fun.
The mandatory part isn't hard. It's fun when you get up there. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, it kind of sucks that was that weekend, but okay, if we have to, we'll go. So, can't
I'm sure you'll have a great time.
Well, in
I will
addition
too,
to
so
Rick's
yeah.
spot being open, there are still a few other spots that are open for this.
There you go. See,
If you're local, it is July 23rd.
If you're not local,
sounds
it's still July 23rd.
Yeah.
yeah, there's no like time difference, like unless you're from
I've
Europe
got people
or something.
from Fargo that are coming over again, so
Nice.
Awesome. Nice.
I saw Ryan and Jeff were signed up. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Makes me excited that people are going to drive 3 hours just to play a game that I'm putting together. That's kind of cool.
It is cool.
So,
Very cool.
So this is a quote unquote teams event or a doubles event, however you want to call it. It was doubles, I guess, the better way.
Double team
doubles.
event? Ah.
Double team event. So, and the reason being that Renegade, this is their doubles event as well. So we're sharing the same place with them, So sure, we can do that. It sounds like fun. Threw a little informal poll out there, and it sounded like people were interested in doing this. So how we're doing it though is going to be random partners for the first round, and then people are going to shift random. Actually, very specific directions and a very specific number of tables to ensure that there will be no doubling up of opponents or partners for the second game, and you will not be on the same table for the second game.
I like it.
You have this all like a beautiful mind out somewhere, right? Like you've already got it all engineered.
Hell no,
Yeah.
he's got it in a notebook someplace. He'll be fine.
It's on
Sure.
it's on,
Yeah, oh,
it's
I
on
lost
an
the
Excel
notebook.
file. So
Nice. Okay, but you have it all like okay here. Yeah, this people.
yep,
go
I have
here,
it mapped
so-
out and
yeah,
okay, and this is what we do if there are 12 players. This is what we do if there are 16 players. This is what we do if there are 32 players. So
Dear Lord. Okay. Fabulous.
Still only
Yeah,
be
I-
8 tables.
Right.
Still
I know
NBA
that's what's
tables,
crazy.
yep.
So
So-
and
So here's how it is. You got basically you have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And 1 and 2 are on a team, and 3 and 4 are on a team.
Yes, sir.
So player 2 will then go 2 tables to the right, and player 1 will go 1 table to the right, and then 3 and 4 will go 2 tables to the left, and player 4 will go 1 table to the left.
Right.
No, left.
Right.
Correct.
Left.
Yes, correct.
So that way,
This is
you're
going
all
to go
in.
worse than WTC matchups.
No,
Theoretically,
better.
no, because Pat's
No,
not
but
going
I
to tell
just-
them all these things. He's going to be like,
Well, I just did. Should I take that?
day, no. I mean, but day of, you're going to be like, Dale, you're at table 1. Like that's all you're going to
Yep.
have to know.
All you're going
right?
to know is your table assignment. Yes.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to be like, oh, I have to
It's
do
gonna be
math
fun.
now.
It's
and
like
do some weird.
it's like bolt action speed dating. We'll be fine.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I love the concept.
And then round 3, I will be. I've baked in an extra 15 minutes in the schedule for me to throw some together because there's awards and prizes that will be had. So the highest individual will win first place. So you might end up someone that you partnered with in round 1 might also be your opponent in round 3.
Because it's Swiss mixed, right?
It's
Swiss mixed, yes,
right, Swiss mix. Yeah, that's
with the marshmallows.
Yeah.
right. But
obviously.
and so the way it's scored, right, is like you get a score for every game.
You and your
opponent get
opponents
the same score.
Get the same score,
Right,
whether
but it is
secondary
individually
objectives,
scored.
whatever you did, you both get the exact same score. Yep, and then so that happens every round.
Right, but yeah, so it's not a. You each get your own score. Everyone's going to have individual scores. It's just that everyone's going to have a partner that they're trying to score points with.
Yep. So you're trying to play with a partner that you probably didn't plan on playing with, or an army that you're not. It's not yours, but it should be. It's supposed to be fun. Damn it! So
I think it will be.
don't take it too seriously.
I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, and I do like the limitations you put into it as well, because I think that does kind of encourage people to not cheese out too much, which was one multi-launcher, one Gurkha, one flamethrower of any kind. Those are all 0-1 choices, right? There's
Correct.
maybe more.
Yeah. Gurkhas, bamboo fighters, shirkers, and
Bamboo fighters, too.
flamethrowers,
Yeah.
multi-launchers.
I had to change my list.
Yeah, we know.
No special characters, no war correspondence.
Right,
of
all the
course.
other normal
Yeah.
stuff, but you've
Yep.
you've put some limitations on other
Yep,
things just to
and
kind of
9
give
order
encourage.
dice just because if both players have 9, okay, now that's 36 dice in the bag for a 2.5 hour. That's kind of
Going to have to move all ass there to get through that game.
and doubles games generally run slower than just 1v1.
That's true.
Totally. There's a little more conversation happening, hopefully,
Yep.
between you and your teammate.
Yep. So those just naturally slow things down a little bit. So that's why. I mean, 36 dice to get through in 2.5 hours between 4 people is kind of like.
Someone's going to have to be on top of that bag.
Yep, and because we're doing one person first, second, third sort of thing, and not a team. So if we do end up with an odd number of teams, those people that are in the odd teams will just end up playing a 1v1 game, so that they'll still get a score for the round and not have a bye.
Makes sense.
Sure. What happens if there are 3 extras?
Then I have my ringer list.
Okay.
I'll jump in.
Okay. Fabulous.
I mean,
And they're going to have to answer their own rule questions.
I don't have to hot seat 2 tables. I mean, I could do that.
Just play two armies.
I could do it.
Yeah. I mean,
I
it's
no doubt
possible.
you could, Jeff, and probably win both games at the same time.
Yeah, that depends.
It's just all Nebelwerfers. All right, tell me when to roll 6s.
Oh, there's
And
0-1.
Oh, fine. Well, okay, fine. One of each.
And so the
And
tournament
an
pack
88
went
would be-
out yesterday, Friday the 24th. If you read it, great. If you don't, if as a minimum, please look at pages 4 and 5 where I have the FAQ. Stuff that is not necessarily 100% covered clearly enough in my liking for Warlord. And I have answered how it will be applicable in this tournament. The new ones on there. So this comes directly from episode 72. Is it possible for a Fnatic unit to have more pins than the morale rating?
No.
No.
No, it's not possible.
Normal units, when they get to their morale rating, are removed. Fanatics will not be removed until they exceed their morale rating. So please stop putting 12 pins on Fanatics.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. Also new to the FAQ here is the outflanking maneuvers that we said. And, people read that as rules as written. The first outflanker comes on. You got to tell me where they all are. And on this tournament, that'll be no, just reveal the secret plans for the unit that came on the board.
Okay.
And this one, well, here's how Jeff's going to feel how he rolled on this one. What happens with destroyed vehicles? Do we remove them from the table or leave them as destroyed, and how do we treat them? So I have decided, mostly this is a fun tournament, a vehicle that receives a double destroyed result from a massive damage will be removed. All other destroyed vehicles remain as impassable hardcover.
So you're thinking like I roll a 6 on the damage table, it goes goodbye?
So if you have massive damage, meaning you on the damage roll you did...
the 2.
You get to roll 2 dice.
And you roll 2 dice, and you do like the 4 or 5 and the 4 or 6, then it's gone.
Okay.
Oh, so both dice have to be destroyed.
Yep.
You have to blow that.
You got to
shit
kill
up.
the hell out of it, and then it goes. Well,
So
I
it-
like that.
I don't dislike it. I like the flavor of it. My biggest concern is people are like, "Huh? What? Does that? How? What?" Like, I think there's going to be some confusion, but whatever.
Of course there is.
Yeah, there's always going to be.
The default is just leave it on the damn table.
Yeah.
yes,
Unless
you roll.
If you
double
don't
damage,
understand, I should
yes.
also put, if you didn't understand the sentence, just leave it on the table as impassable hardcover.
There you go.
That's a good way to put it.
That's like, huh? Okay, no, it says just never mind. Just ignore what I just said. Okay, perfect.
It says just leave it there.
Yeah.
So that's coming up.
Okay.
I have gotten some prize support for it.
Fabulous.
I think it's rather apropos, and I've reached out to Warlord, and hopefully they'll give me one of their fancy little surprise packs.
Sweet.
They're doing those again this year. I'm not going to try and shake the prize tree too hard, because right around the corner, I don't want to go back and ask these guys again for stuff for SNAFU.
Yep.
So,
Right. Yeah,
I gotta
the
kinda
pinata only gives so much stuff.
Yep, I kind of got to, shake the trees that I know will drop a couple of pieces and still have fruit later in the year.
Right on.
So, which means some of the stuff is the leftover funds from SNAFU last year. The 100 or so that I had left over that we knew was going to end up being spent on other price support elsewhere.
I was going to say, I have a box or two I could probably give to you of stuff.
Just rattle the Rick tree and see what falls out.
Well, I think if one box is of raffle shit from other places, I can just be like, here's this back. Win it again.
Win it again. Well, you're not going to be there to win it again, Rick.
No, it's fine. I don't need to win it again. I got plenty of stuff to work on that I don't need more. Like, I think I have a box.
You trying to say it's going to be like that box of Dreadfleet that got passed around through 4 tournaments?
Oh, God, that thing. The thing still exists somewhere. That thing is being handed around somewhere still.
Yeah.
History says it's still moving around. All right.
It's like the fruitcake. There's
Yeah,
one fruitcake.
it is literally in someone's freezer right now. Yes. Copy of Dreadfleet. That game was so. I'm surprised that we don't still see it. Like, stores had like hundreds of copies of that shit, and it was just sitting on the shelf.
There's a landfill somewhere that's filled with Dreadfleet boxes in the cellophane.
It's like New Jersey's just all Dreadfleet.
Wasn't it just like awful?
I never got to play it.
Nobody. Every review tanked the living crap out of it, so it was really hard to be like, I should buy this $150 game full of weird plastic shit and play it.
It suffered from being the first Warhammer Fantasy ship combat game that came after Man of War, and wasn't even remotely like Man of War. What people wanted was the second edition of Man of War.
Right. They wanted a new edition of Man of War.
Yep.
And that was not what that
was not
what they got. Yeah, that was it kind of fell on. The fans didn't like it, and it was very expensive. From what I remember, it was not a cheap box.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Had a ton of components and shit in it, like cool. Like the miniatures look cool. Mm-hmm. I don't know, tangent the shit out of it.
That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, speaking of really tangenting, I actually went and looked up transparency paper on Amazon.
Yeah,
that shit all belongs in a museum too. Like every package looks like it's from like the 1980s. Like it's like, oh my god, it's still the old shit that they still had from back then. They probably made thousands of extras back then and just selling it now.
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I guess my other option is I could pick up tons of spools of barbed wire and just run them through the fences too, but that sounds like it'd be kind of a pain in the butt as well.
You just have to file down the ends.
No, you can buy the little barbed wire miniature stuff.
Oh, sure, yeah. I thought you meant real barbed wire. I'm like, well, be careful with that.
Everybody, here's your prize and a tetanus shot.
Yeah.
No, we'll just stick with the miniatures stuff. That'll be okay.
Yeah, nobody needs to get that day of. Everyone needs to have given you that their tetanus is up to date before.
Yeah, wait, let me see. We're going to need to and sign this, please. What's that? Oh, that's just your release. That's your medical release in case for playing on this table.
One of our friends was talking about a 40K tournament where somebody had like a spiky ass table that got like literally would stab you if you got near it.
Yeah.
I can't remember where that was. Yeah, I was like, no thanks, I'll pass on that.
That sounds like 40K.
It's very 40K, but all right. That I'm really sad that I'm not going to be there. I kind of helped push you in a direction, Pat, and I was like, and then I'm not going to be there.
I think that's called irony, is what that is.
Probably because I was like, I'm shaping the event that I would want to go to, where I have random partners that like I get to know new people, maybe, hopefully, maybe a few. You
get to play with people, that you oftentimes probably play against, like,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, hey, cool.
Yeah.
Instead of get my butt kicked by Dale, I get to be on his team. That sounds like fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think what it also does is, like, I've seen enough team tournament lists, and you're like, okay, people synergize the living shit out of them, right? You can make two lists like work very well together, depending on what you want to do. Like, you can you can tool the crap out of it, and then you get two people that are like, I'm here to have fun, and it's a very different experience overall. So not being able to know who your teammate is eliminate some of that, so you got to kind of bring a little bit more balance.
Yep.
I think that's beneficial.
Yep.
I think it just protects those newer players a little bit.
Yeah.
So I mean, if everyone wants to go cutthroat, then it's a different thing. And then you'd have paired teams. And
I mean, we could run a tournament like that some other time.
Right. You could do a hard doubles.
I just spent a year training for high competitive. I thought this would be a nice.
This feels very casual. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone
Hopefully
knows they're going
to
to have
new players too.
Yep. Yeah, and I hope for that my sake at least a little bit that people enjoy it, because I kind of push you this way, and I feel bad that I maybe did, since I'm not going to be there.
So gripes can be sent to Rick.
Yeah. You can definitely complain on Facebook if it doesn't work out, but I think it will. I think you're going to get the type of players that want to have fun.
I agree.
You might lose some competitive players that are there to this is a different experience.
I'll be playing competitively, but I'm not bringing the list that I wanted to. So,
yeah, I just realized I had to reject my own ringer list because I had two squads of shirkers in it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because the shirkers are limited too. That's right.
Yeah.
If in doubt, read the player pack because it tells you all this shit. Right.
That's such a novice concept.
Right.
The next episode. Oh no, sorry. By the time we record again, I think this tournament will be done.
Yeah,
most likely. Yeah.
Theoretically, it depends. It's January or
January.
January.
I'll be ready in January again. I'll be able to record in January again. No, July's shaping up to be a wicked month. So
well, summer always is. That's why I tried to grab you guys as early as I could before the fourth hit, and everyone got scattered to the vacation.
7 wins. Yeah.
Getting close already. I think you got the one weekend.
Yep.
Sweet. All right. Let's soup to nuts indirect fire then. Shall we?
Nuts.
Yeah.
Soup.
Beer nuts. Beer nut soup.
What?
That's not a thing.
I hope not.
Now get the deer nuts. They're cheaper.
Beer soup is a thing.
No, deer nuts. They're cheaper. They're under $1.
Deer nuts.
Yes. Oh my God. Wow.
I'll pass. Hard pass. All right. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about indirect fire, because everyone has fun with it. And everyone uses the shit out of it, I guess. A little bit, right? Everyone's almost always got a mortar.
I think probably the medium mortar, the spotter, is like the universal language for all armies.
It explains why I don't speak the universal language.
Is that because you run the heavies?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the army, but yes, I like heavies, because when they land, holy shit!
Okay, well let's start with the weapons that have indirect fire to them. We mentioned the mortar, of course.
Yes, sir.
There's the 3 flavors of those.
3 flavors of mortar.
No, well, there's 4 if you count the spigot mortar. I'm just throwing that in there.
Why would you bring that up again?
Because the thing's a meme.
Because it's hilarious.
Because it's
freaking stupid.
Good? Yeah, I know.
Stupid good, yeah, we know. Yeah.
So I was actually reading one of the Wikipedia entries on it. There's only like 50 of them.
So that's about the same number of Pumas.
Yeah, I mean, that's about half of the other shit that's out there in this.
What, 10 times more than there were Whirlwinds? Or Kugelblitzes.
Kugelblitzes, yeah.
Kugelblitzes.
Okay, all right, so there's that, but yeah. But I guess that it was not known for its accuracy, but it was known for its causing terror, so.
Seems accurate.
No, inaccurate.
Just a lot.
Inaccurate.
Yeah, well, yes, inaccurate, but seems
Right.
historically relevant. Like, there we go. Whatever. I would imagine it would cause tear. Yes.
All right, so we included the spigot mortar.
Yeah, it's its own thing. Yeah, but yes, it's its own thing.
And then you've also got the howitzers.
The varieties of those. Yep.
And then you've also got some of the, was it the grenade launchers that they added, like Battle of the Bulge book?
Oh, the rifle grenades?
Rifle grenades, thank you, yeah.
Well, it didn't. I mean,
Those existed for the French from the beginning. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say the French had them.
French had them from the beginning.
and there was an engineer squad in Germans that have it
French
too.
had them before they were cool. Hipsters.
Yeah, French.
Cutting edge fashion.
French were very cool.
French
like
were
that.
very avant-garde with the rifle grenades.
So, and if people don't know how they work, you shouldn't be using them.
Also
How
true.
indirect work?
No, rifle grenades.
Oh yeah, I don't know how to use those. I would never bring them.
Are
They're
they
not
like
cheap.
They're like a 6 to 18 or something goofy like that for range.
Mm-hmm.
Short range light
Yes.
mortar.
Essentially a light mortar.
Yeah, it's a shorter range light mortar.
shorter range.
Yeah.
Yes. And it can move and shoot and one shit. Yeah. Nothing else.
Yeah, well, and so if they're in a squad, they can fire at a different target than the rest of the rifles are shooting at too. So,
Because
or is that just one shot?
I thought that was just one shot. We'll post. Well, we don't know the answer to that right now. We're not gonna. Maybe we'll look it up in a second.
I do, but I had to switch computers, and this one does not have my rule book on it, or else I'll look it up in the break, and we'll get back to you on that.
There you go.
I'll have to pop out to my Dropbox. All right.
Well, isn't Warlord having a 50% off digital book sale? Can you just buy them and put them on your new computer?
Just
Buy
buy them
the
all
book
again.
right now,
Jeez,
yeah.
yeah. Come on.
Buy it again.
Again and again and again. Just keep buying.
I have them in my Dropbox. So I'll just go grab it. All right, you guys move on to the next one, and I'll
all right.
circle back for you.
I mean, I think that. Do we count Nebelwerfers or multi-launchers in the weapons slot?
Well,
They're
they
considered
fire
indirect at all
too.
times.
They fire in direct HE, so
They fire indirect.
Yeah, so
too.
I guess that would be the other one that we haven't talked about yet would be the multi-launcher, which is its own thing. It acts a little differently and always only hits on sixes, but it's the same concept.
it's the David S. Pumpkins of indirect fire. The joke either hits or it doesn't.
Yeah, it didn't hit with me. I'm like, who is that? I'm like, I know that name.
I
but
missed
don't know
it
why.
too. So.
What is it from?
It's the old SNL bit with Tom Hanks.
Okay, all right. I thought it was maybe SNL.
Tom Hanks, where he's in the elevator and he's like David S. Pumpkins, and no one gets the joke.
Yeah, okay.
It's like, yeah.
It's a Halloween episode,
It
wasn't
is
it?
a Halloween episode.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
absolutely
I
is,
actually remember, and I was like, what is going on? I actually remember watching it, not
yes.
understanding it.
Exactly. It's very much a
Yeah.
hit or miss.
Like old SNL was. All right. Well, like new SNL, I guess, too.
Yeah,
Pretty much all
that's-
SNL 's
Pretty much
always
all
been that
SNL.
way.
It's very
Yeah.
hit or miss.
Yeah. Pretty much. That's kind of the.
I don't know. There were some seasons that went back to back that were pretty hit. So
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah.
All I know is I can pull off an incredible John Belushi sushi guy. I can't remember what his name was. The Samurai Butcher. Like I was when this Halloween once with him, and I was like, "Holy shit! I actually kind of look like John Belushi." Or, yeah, not necessarily in a good way. It's like, oh man, maybe need to clean up my act a little bit.
you're just a few pounds short of coke to pull off a really good.
Yeah. I should have done that. Dang it! I should have had like powder in my nose or something. There you go. It probably wasn't the most appropriate party. Hey, Pat, have we bought you enough time to find the answer to your question yet?
Almost.
Oh, okay, all right. We'll keep talking then. Let's talk about the roles of indirect fire. I'm probably the worst person to answer this, but I think it's probably to move infantry. As my primary role for my indirect fire is basically to keep moving shit.
Any kind of indirect fire that ranges in absolutely is to make things move or punish things that are sitting on an objective or in some form of cover,
Or punish something that can't move.
or punish something that can't move.
Or
exactly.
very good at that's also a very good use for it.
Yep.
Counter battery and artillery.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like
Yep.
your medium mortar hitting a bigger piece of artillery sucks for them.
The lesser known medium mortar wars.
Yes.
The medium mortar wars.
Well, we
of
had the sniper
1945.
wars. When you want to be a veteran for that. Now you have
Well,
your medium mortar
ideally, you've
wars.
won the sniper war, and then your sniper can take out the mortar. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
That usually is the answer to that problem.
Yeah.
But they can't do so much to a howitzer, though.
Depends
Just
upon
saying.
how the
Yes.
infantry is lined up around it.
Well, the sniper can certainly pick guys off the howitzer.
The sniper you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, you can't. The sniper can. Yes. Another temp with landing on an artillery piece sucks.
Yeah.
But you can't sniper it off at least.
You can't. Yeah.
That's the difference between having a mortar and howitzers. Right. Howitzers are artillery pieces and can't be one-shotted off with a sniper, which is nice.
Only with other heavy weapons.
Right.
Which fucking blows when it happens, but it happens.
That's why I take that AT rifle.
Yep. On a Bren carrier.
That's because you can pop an artillery piece.
Yep.
If you roll lucky.
Yeah. If you roll 4 6s in a row, do it all day.
Only 4 6s in a row.
Yep.
I've only done that once in my life.
You only need 4 if you need a super 6 to hit it.
Right. Yeah. If you've moved in hard cover, like long range. Yes. If you're in 7s all of a sudden.
Yep.
So we have to be careful how we say that, Pat or Dale, whatever your name is. Jesus. As we've learned, people don't understand what we're saying when we say supers.
Well, that's their fault. I mean, obviously, it's the superior way to say it. So,
all right. So, in episode 73, we were going to define what supers mean, so we understand. Everyone, it means 6s following 6s. Yeah. I got used to saying that at the tournament. Was like supers, and they're like, what are you talking about? 6s following 6s. Okay, all right, got it.
Yep.
They just call them 7s,
or 7s.
7 on the dice.
Yeah.
That works. There's lots of different ways to call it.
Super 6s is the official SNAFU name for it now.
I agree, and we'll TM that and put it on our shirts or something.
Yep.
Hope you enjoyed the music. Super 6s.
Dude,
Super 6s for the win.
If you made a shirt that was like the Superman symbol, except it was 2 dice with double 6s on it, I would wear that shit all over the place.
But it can't be 6s, it has to be stars.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, double star, yeah, double
SNAFU
star, yeah. I'd wear the shit out of it.
Look like we got boobies on our shirt.
Well, I mean, I've got boobies. I might as well accentuate them.
Don't put them there. Put them towards the middle.
No, I want them. I want some Elvira pasties on my shirt.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, that's what my boobs are for, drawing attention.
Hell yeah.
We can put little red stars on them. It's going to draw attention. All right. Anyway, yeah. So, Pat, did you find your answer?
No.
Our listeners are begging you to find it so we can shut up.
because we can stop talking about weird shit that we don't need to talk about.
That's fine. Okay. So that's the role of stuff that ranges in.
Yes, sir.
Let's add the role of the Nebelwerfer, which is purely a psychological weapon.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. It's there to make your opponent be nervous about putting his shit together, and to scare your opponent when you're rolling it, every time you shoot it and roll dice.
Yep. Well, it encourages people to keep their crap away from buildings.
Yep.
And it tries to keep things spread out.
Yeah, absolutely a terror weapon. If it actually ever hits anything, which it usually doesn't, but if it ever does, then it's like, that's just gravy.
Night.
That's just gravy.
Yeah. The worst... Go ahead, Pat.
Page 72. If a unit includes both normal weapons and indirect firing weapons, such as one or more light mortars, any mortar in the squad can pick a target individually regardless of what the rifles and other mortars in the squad are doing.
Nice.
Ranging in is kept track of separately for each mortar. You might have to write things down. ...
Well done. All right, so it exists.
Woo.
It's not a... Yep. Yeah. Thankfully.
Sorry, I said it twice and skipped over it because someone said multi-launcher, and I was right. The multi-launcher is the next sentence, and I'm like, oh, hey, multi-launchers.
the last tournament we went to, or the one that Pat ran, Theaters of War. That was Theaters of War. And I brought the Panzerwerfer, and I think I faced... 2 of my 3 opponents didn't know what a multi-launcher was, so it had no psychological effect.
Oh, that sucks.
I was like, I'm like, so here's what it does. Like trying to play it up, and they're like, okay, and just like put all their shit on the table the way they would have anyway, and they're like, crap.
They're like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, like it worked, but I don't roll 6s, so it didn't matter unless I'm rolling a leadership check or something. Yeah, it was quite funny. I was like, all right, and this is how a multi-launcher works, and they're like, yeah, okay.
That's nice. Pat you on the head.
Like, good for you to bring the funny.
Isn't
toys.
that cute?
Yeah. Oh, he's gonna play with it. Okay. I mean, whatever.
All right, sorry. The rest of the rolls. So we got the multi launchers roll.
I think we covered them.
Yeah. All right.
The only other thing I would mention, and it falls into forcing units to move. Keep in mind that in order to drop the ranging in, the unit has to shift from its previous location by more than 2 inches.
Yes.
And if
entire footprint.
If it's a huge unit, like 15 spearmen, that might actually be relatively difficult depending upon how they're moving it. So if you range in on a unit and they're like, okay, I've moved 2 inches, well, you may still be ranged in on that unit, so you want to pay attention to that.
Yep.
Yeah, like there's the Russian T-35, which can't move out of its own footprint
Correct.
at all. So once you're ranged in the rest of the game.
It's a dildo moving across the
It
table.
really is.
Oh, it's slow to move, so it can only go 6 inches,
Yeah.
and it can't run.
Yeah.
And it's like 5.5 inches long. So
That's what I said.
you're right. Yeah, she loved you.
Yep. So that's the other little piece of that. Shifting units and ranging in, that whole thing. So
I think we touched target selection a little bit as far as what you should be using for.
Yeah.
I think we hit that pretty well.
Yep, that wraps up, or that falls into roles as well.
Yep.
So
Yep. So the timing of it, and I see new players do this a lot. Your first dice out of the bag shouldn't be your mortar.
no. Well,
You want to be targeting units
not
that
on your
have
f-
are,
not
well,
on
not
your
on
first
first,
turn.
not on turn
Yeah.
one, not on turn one. You're right. Thank you. Turn 2 probably, but you don't target units that haven't activated already this turn. You want to give yourself that opportunity to get that dice early round next turn. So if you miss that 6, now you're hitting them at 5 instead. That's what you want to be looking for. But I've seen people target units that haven't activated, and then they go and move, and they're like, "Oh, I guess that didn't work." Like, well, no, it didn't. So that's the difference, between multi-launchers, which almost always want to go as early as they can in the round, and people are still clumped together. Just getting the timing down of when your indirect fire should go. So all of the indirect fire, howitzers and whatnot.
Yes.
Yep. And then you have to decide if pulling the bag subsequent to turn 1, if you want to take, if the last dice out of the bag, you use your mortar and you miss on a 6, and then you pull the next dice out of your bag and you've got a 5 up, 2 rolls, that's not terrible odds, but you have to make that choice. Clearly, if you've ranged in and it's a 2 up, then you want to take advantage of that. So,
And don't be surprised when you do roll a 1,
Right.
Don't be upset. Yes.
because it happens too.
More often than you care for it to happen.
Right. Your evaluation
Yeah.
is my sniper still on the table? Oh, it is. Okay, I'm going to use my sniper shot versus I'm going to try and use range in on a 5.
Yep.
There's other things to do with your dice. If you ranged in, sure, yeah, absolutely going to punish that unit. If you lucked out that first round,
Oh, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
you're going to force it to go down, right? Theoretically.
yeah, if you're
You've
ranged
already hit it
in,
once.
I think most people are going to go down at that point. So,
Yeah. And then you'll roll the 1, and they'll be like, "Damn, why did I go down?" Right?
Yep.
Yeah. And you'll be
That's,
like, "Damn, why
that's
didn't I
exactly how it goes.
Everyone's upset.
If I could only have known what you had rolled before you rolled it, I would have been fine.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that would have changed everything. Speaking
So
of which, I'm entering a rock, paper, scissors contest. So I need to know what everyone's thinking before. I'm not even shitting you. I signed up for a rock, paper, scissors contest. Free, but the first prize is $500.
Oh, Jesus.
I know. It's like, I kid you not. Yeah.
so this is like a professional pro-am rock, paper, scissors competition?
Yes,
You
totally.
couldn't find a cornhole game or something?
This was free, and it was rock, paper, scissors, and the kid, the picture from last year was a kid holding it up, so I figure I got a shot at winning it. I don't.
Well,
I don't
I mean,
know.
you've got a good record against kids in competition.
Yeah.
so.
Yes. Thanks, Carl. You're out there somewhere, Carl. You're not a kid anymore, though.
No.
This is like a full-grown adult. I think he's graduated college. That's a story for another day, everyone. I would lose to children all the time.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's go to the other side of the indirect fire and go to the target's side. And how should they best handle their situation with indirect fire?
Like if we're being
Oh.
shot by indirect fire?
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's look at the other side. Look at the other side and think things through on that end. I think I've heard Jeff say this a couple of times. Only if the unit is very valuable would you consider going down when they're first ranging in a 6.
I would agree with that.
Yep.
I often will look at my opponent very cautiously with kind of squinty eyes and be like, okay, he's rolling a 6 this time, and then go down. But then other times be like, no, he's not going to roll a 6.
My specific rule of thumb is if this guy rolls a 6, will it completely wreck my entire game? And if the answer to that is
Yes.
yes, I go down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. What about the 5?
Why haven't you moved?
Yeah, if it's, I usually let them just have the 5. I don't start going down to 4.
So if me personally, if it's they got the last round 6+, and they get an early dice, and that unit hasn't activated, and they're on the 5+, I'm taking that 5+ and damn remembering to move that unit.
Yeah, run. Yeah, get the heck out of there.
So.
And hopefully you haven't taken too many pins that you're going to fail that check.
Right.
I was going to say, I have in the past targeted units that I'm ranging in on to give them pins with other units.
So they don't get to move. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
You're right. You're punishing that rally. Yeah, you clear all my pins, but you're going to take a big template typically.
Yes.
I almost never go down unless I'm already being ranged in on. And adding the additional pins can be tricky if they're already down, and so you start to lose a little bit of efficiency in those choices. So, I mean...
I think it also sometimes depends, Dale, on where your unit is when when you decide to go down, right?
Sure.
Like you and I played, you're putting those units down there on the objectives. There's no reason not to. They're going to get shot at a bunch of other times.
Yeah, I mean,
if
you're in a static position and you're just trying to tank as much damage as you can, yes, that's a perfect point. So, and that's actually an important distinction.
Right. Yeah. It's just like you don't never go down. No. It's you go down when you're just trying to preserve your unit.
Yes.
Yep. You have no other things to do with it. It's going to sit there and it's going to sit on the objective and do what it's supposed to be doing anyway. But I'm going to just protect it.
Yep. And don't forget, at the end of the turn, you can leave your unit down and remove some pins
off.
Yep.
D3.
It's not D3+1. It's just D3.
Straight D3.
Straight D3.
But still, that's not nothing when you're taking pins.
Absolutely, it's really nice sometimes.
And it's also not losing an order dice.
Correct.
Which is absolutely huge.
Yes.
Well, and down is so defensive anyway. If that unit's sitting where you want it to be sitting, then there's no reason not to be down.
Yeah, and
particularly
down,
if there's a table with cover.
And down, down is even better against HE because you're having all of those hits. So
yes, sir. Yeah.
It's a great way to kind of suck a little bit of the life out of. I mean, sure, they've hit you. And that can hurt, but if you're down and continue to go down, then they're not getting nearly as much efficiency out of that weapon as they could be if they're.
And that's another unit they're not targeting.
Yep.
Right.
You're moving your other stuff instead.
So they're having to invest another action or 2 or 3, depending upon how many guys you've still got in that unit. And even in the end, because you're going down, they may not be able to clear everything off, depending upon how much time is left. So.
And it may give you an opportunity to get something to over there to actually take out that mortar team or even direct fire team as well. Yep. You don't have to let them keep blowing you up. You can go send stuff to destroy what's blowing.
You could go
up.
kill the mortar. Yes, they're not terribly hard to kill.
Yeah, the mortar. I think the mortar is best at trying to hit those static targets, like those other artillery pieces that can't move.
Artillery pieces,
because if that artillery piece is going down, it not firing is worth continuing to hammer that position.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that you're hoping for is to catch a big unit, and it's not down, and you splash that template on them, and you cripple that unit with a number of pins, killing 4 or 5 guys if you're lucky, and then it's a lot more easy to deal with at that point. So,
and again, this goes without saying, but I'm a dumbass, so I have to say it. How you position your units really matters. Sometimes, right?
Sure.
When you splash a template, don't put them all nice tight in there.
Yeah,
no
tight
like
grouping.
9. You get 9 guys, like, oh shit, like I just killed that entire unit. Or even if you're having them because you're down, but you're tight, you're still going to lose. That's still 4 or 5 hits, depending on how your unit is. So keep that in mind at all times. It's hard to remember that sometimes. I always forget it all the time, and I'm like, oh crap, I bunched them up, and now I'm going to hit with a template.
Yeah.
Shit. But, and then also when you're removing models, consider that when you're removing models.
yes.
Like if that unit's down and you're being defensive, okay, removing models really matters how you place them because it could change how the template lands. Right? You could get less hits if you move the right model versus, just the back guy. Right? Back guy was probably not the right choice. Probably. I'm just saying. But, okay. That was my dumb help.
No, it wasn't dumb. That was good.
It's very good.
Well, it's. I feel like an idiot when I do it because I always do it. Like I'm okay moving this unit up quick, and then I'm like, oh shit, they're all together. And like, oh, now a template. And then sure enough, a template will land on top of them. And like, that sucks. And all of a sudden, that 1-inch template becomes very valuable. Like, oh, you just hit 4 guys with a 1-inch template? That's awesome. 3 usually, but whatever. Sometimes. It's happened. It's happened. Yeah. Is there anything more we're going to talk about indirect fire? Anything else? Any other thoughts?
I got nothing more, so.
Okay. Bring them. They're good.
You should. I always have at least one.
Yep.
I find that not having a spotter sometimes is fine.
Depends on the table
just saying.
and the mission.
It really depends on the table, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't feel bad at WTC not having spotters.
No.
That's for sure. I don't think anyone did. I don't think anyone
Well,
cared.
and the other side of that is spotters and forward deployers is a different game that maybe we'll talk about in another episode.
Sure. Yeah. It does change things a little bit. You're right. Okay. I think we're going to take a short break. We'll come back, and we're going to talk about being nice at a tournament. Just going to a tournament. I don't know. Tournament etiquette is really what it is.
Yeah. Which isn't the same as being nice at a tournament, almost.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you should still be nice. But there's nice on the table and there's nice as a person. You need to be nice as a person. You don't need to be necessarily nice on the table, but we'll talk about that.
You shouldn't be dancing on the table anyway.
I love dancing.
You shouldn't
on the
be
table.
on. I mean, I do too. Maybe not a Warhammer or a bolt action table. Excuse me. Damn, I said Warhammer. All right, we'll take a short break.
Let's take a break then.
Yeah, I need something. I need something to drink. I'm out of drink. All right, we'll take a short break. Come back, talk about that. Hope you enjoy the music. right, welcome back. Hope you like the music.
It was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, I got the hiccups while we were on break, so hopefully they don't come back again. I think I got rid of them, but
It got you a little worked up there.
Just got to go over to your house and scare you.
apparently Jeff's just standing outside my window.
Recording this entire
out.
episode in my car parked in front of your house.
For just the occasion.
Just in case you got the hiccups. Yeah, that'd be rather scary. Yeah, not what I would expect. But anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed my short break there. But so let's talk about tournaments. More specifically, going to a tournament and how you should act at a tournament. Yes, and the things you should and should not do at a tournament.
You shouldn't cheat.
Yeah, our thoughts.
Well, that's
our thoughts on this.
Yes, this is our thoughts. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, this
I'm
is
sure that
very
other people have
personal.
thoughts. Yeah, cheating is frowned upon in every game, in every sport, and everything that you could possibly do. I don't think there's a place for it in gaming in general. I think that usually hopefully gets you ejected or booted from at least the event that you're in, and maybe not be encouraged to come to further events in the future.
Yeah.
Just getting that out in the front, right? Like, I don't tolerate cheating. There's no reason to.
Right.
And if you win a tournament because you cheated, does it make you a better person?
No.
Like,
No.
you're not like,
No.
oh yeah, I'm the best ever. No, you're like, I cheated my way to the top. That's kind of gross.
I don't think this isn't about cheating, though, is it?
No,
It's
no,
not.
we're not.
Nope. I got my cheating out of the way. There we go. Let's talk about tournament etiquette then, as far as like what you should expect and what you should be doing at a tournament, because I think
You
that's
should read the
important.
pack.
That's outside of the outline that we have as well. But yes, you should absolutely. That's giving respect to the tournament organizer and the tournament itself, as if you've read the pack. I honestly think that is probably disrespectful to not have put in the effort to at least have the bare minimum knowledge of what's going on.
But I think we're actually talking about what your player conduct
Yes.
should be.
Yes.
Some simple examples are, a lot of people have templates and stuff like that. You have your 2, 3, 4 inch templates. A lot of people have the little 6-inch movement, because all the units have 6
widget.
inches. That's it. The widget. That's
Yep.
it's a fairly common thing, and leaving those lying in the playing surface can kind of give you a good judge of exactly what some distances are. So I think, and it's probably very subconscious and people just forget, but keeping that stuff off the table when it's not being used.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen people go as far as to have their tape measured, like those level locks, like right, they stay locked until you push the button, but they'll leave it just open.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, I'm a pretty friendly tournament player in general. Like, I don't necessarily, I'm not hard-nosed about what my opponent's doing, but I have noticed that before. I typically don't ask because it usually is not a problem, but that is actually an edge, right? Like, that is specifically, the ranges because you have a number in front of you.
Yep.
Which I
another
think
thing
is
I always
interesting.
do is if you're targeting or doing a charge and measuring distances and stuff like that, tell your opponent what the number is. If you know the number, it's only fair that they know the number too.
Yep.
Right. They absolutely could measure themselves, but why bother going through the rigmarole if you have already measured and you know the number? You should absolutely be like, that was 22 inches away. That's a very easy thing to do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
These are all just like one-off tips here.
Here's another one. When you roll your dice, pick up your misses, not your hits.
Yep.
Well, first, roll your dice in a place where your opponent can see
Yes.
them. Not
Yes.
behind the building in your little corner, because, that may be the most, accommodating space, but
I
that's
will
not
say
the
that
best for your
I
opponent.
will say this for WTC: there's plenty of open spaces to roll dice that both players could see the results.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. I 100% think, though, that you need to find a place. There needs you roll them off the table if you have to, wherever. There's got to be a place where your opponent can see them. And then, like you said, Pat, picking up your misses, not your hits, is a very easy way to show your opponent that you're like, I'm not trying to cheat.
Yep.
Right.
And it makes it easy for
announce your number of hits and
Yep.
let them give you a head nod or repeat the number and say, "Yep," or "Nice job," or
Don't-
confirm
Yeah.
before you're rolling your wound stuff.
Yeah. Don't roll and scoop in a 5-second shot, because I think that's again, everyone's moving fast. There's a time limit, but you have to be considerate to your opponent in that regard, right? They would like to get an opportunity to see those dice too.
Yep.
Yep.
Not
And-
because anyone's cheating, but that's just
Courtesy.
it's courtesy. And I don't know how many games like I've missed one, or my opponent misses one, or there's like, no, that was a 3, not a 5, or whatever. Right? There's an opportunity for someone to help you in some regard too, right? Like, nope, that was another 5. You had another one, right?
Yeah, no, you picked up a 5. Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. There's definitely, and I'm more than willing to help my opponent do that too. But I think that's part of being able to see the dice. I can't help you if they're hiding behind a building.
If you're a person who likes to roll things in a box or in a dice tray, and the edges are a little high, no.
Well, as long as you're in a position where your opponent can see it, I don't care. But
yeah,
I'm gonna talk about this for a second because we're talking about dice.
Sorry.
No, I mean this is fair, and this is no. I'm going to say this, and this is not meant to offend anyone else. That played this person at WTC. I struggle with people that roll certain dice for certain things and then other dice for other things. That can give
that looks shady as as F.
You may not be cheating, and I'm sure you're not.
It maybe is just a psychological thing for you.
It's observation bias at a minimum, but I think that's the trick, right? Is like I have a pool of dice.
These
I
are
roll
my
them for
dice.
everything. Yeah, these are not my leadership dice. These are not my hit dice. Whatever. I think you just have to be very cognizant of what other people are doing, and I think I know at least in one circumstance where I would have been like, "Can I use your dice?" I don't know that they would have wanted me to use them.
Right.
And I think that's if you ever face that, that's a very easy way to fix that problem is to ask your opponent, okay, we're going to just roll all your dice then. Like, we can roll your dice for my stuff and your stuff, and that would even things out and would make that not look shady anymore, right? Because it's going to even average out for everyone. But that's weird to use someone else's dice. Yeah. So just have one kind of dice,
especially in a COVID world.
Yeah. When I used to play competitive X-Wing, it was absolutely a rule that if you wanted to, you could ask, and then you would only use one set of dice, right? Like you and your opponent would both use the same dice for everything.
And at a high-level event,
I don't think that's unreasonable.
I think it's reasonable for the TO to provide dice.
Yeah,
I was going to say I know in the top tables for 40K tournaments, the tournaments provide the dice for the table.
I think that's a very easy solution to the problem. Is like, here are the dice you're going to be using. Don't be using other dice. It just provides that just extra level of security that you're going to feel like nobody's doing anything weird.
I don't even know where you could find rigged dice. Can you buy them somewhere?
You can make them.
You absolutely can.
You can make them? Okay.
So there's something called, well, never mind. We're not going to get into it in the conversation, but yes, it's absolutely available. So you can. This
is one of those things where I'm not going to tell you how to rob a bank because I don't want to
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to, and I'm like, no, you don't need to know that. It's like, not that I've done it. I just researched it, and it is absolutely still a thing, and you can absolutely still buy them. They look like every other normal dice.
You mean you just can't take the one side and paint a couple of extra pips on it to make it a 3?
Well, you could absolutely do that too. That's a different type of cheating. But that was the more common thing that I found was something called never mind. Try to get it out of me, but no.
You'll fold eventually if we keep
eventually I'll put it on our Discord or something. No. I just think it just gives you such a weird look if you're rolling certain dice for certain things and other dice for other things.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't make your opponent feel good, right? And I know people are superstitious, but be superstitious about one set of dice then, right? Like multiple times this has happened. This is not just one event that this has happened at. And I would have loved to if they've just been like, I'm just going to use my gray dice or I'm just going to use my red dice and then not use any of the other dice. And just made it would have felt less sketchy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Whatever. That's a gripe on mine, but. The next one I have a gripe with too because I think what I will do at the beginning of a tournament or at the beginning of a game is I will be like, any dice that's cocked I will pick up and roll, regardless of I'm not going to try and put a dice on top of it. 6 or 1 doesn't matter. If it's sitting on a piece of terrain or whatever, I'm going to pick it up.
If it is not 100% flat on the surface.
And you can do this any way you want, but you have to be consistent. Yeah. Right? You have to say, I'm going to always do this or I'm going to always do the other things. Right? You can always say, I'm going to always put a dice on top, but don't be selective like, oh, it's a good roll. I'm not going to be cocked anymore. like it's really easy to get into that mentality of like, oh, it's beneficial to me, I'm going to leave it, versus, you know, it's beneficial for my opponents to not.
So along that line, my rule of thumb is if a dice is cocked, I always ask my opponent. It's like, what do you want me to do with that one? Whether it's a 1 or a 6.
That's very reasonable. Yeah, that's very courteous to your opponent, right? You're being kind and being like, what do you want me to do?
And if he wants
let them decide.
Yeah, and if he wants me to keep a 1, I'm fine. Whatever.
Yeah, putting a decision on your opponent can be kind of challenging too, though.
I like
in the
doing
sense
that.
Like, I know you do. It kind of throws them off balance. Where it's like I've just said, if it's cocked, it's cocked. Like it's always going to be. Yeah. I'm always going to pick it up.
And as long as you're consistent, I agree with you. That's fine.
And I even during WTC, I was telling my opponent, if it's cocked, I'm going to pick it up.
Yep.
Like it's
so
easy enough.
Rolling dice that go off the playing surface.
Yeah, that I pick those up too, personally.
I pick those up too. I know some people will not.
They'll leave it whatever the number shows.
They'll leave it whatever it is, you know. And that's, you know, as you said, that's a consistency thing.
Yes.
You know, or people are rolling in a tray and it pops out of the tray. And you know what? If you're rolling in a tray and it pops out, I think you need to re-roll it. If you're going through that effort, regardless what the result is, you should re-roll it back into your little special tray. So,
it's again, this all comes down to consistency. You're going to do one thing, do it every time. And in fact, I know in certain circumstances I will adopt whatever my opponent's doing. Mm-hmm. Right, I will follow the same consistencies. Right, it's not hard to follow. Like, oh yeah, I rolled off, we're going to leave it. You know, whatever the dice result is we're going to both do the same things.
It's on the floor. It's a 5. It's good.
you can see it, right? Oh, tough luck, you can't see it, but it is a 5. Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, nobody needs to do that.
Has anyone seen that? I haven't. I've never seen that.
I haven't seen anyone roll it off.
I have jokingly said it, but no,
I have never seen anyone try to claim a dice that's gone to the floor, and whatever facing it is. Yeah. At least not since we were elementary kids.
I actually feel like I might have seen it. I don't know. I don't know if I can say that. And if it was like one time. It was never like I would not consider it to be a normal thing for someone to be like, "Yep, it's a 5 on the floor." That doesn't count.
My rule of thumb is if you're rolling on the playing surface and it leaves the playing surface, it's the same as being on the floor.
Sure.
Re-roll it.
I'm again, just be consistent, and then it's not a problem. And don't be advantageous to when it's advantageous to you.
Yeah. Right. Don't keep that 6 if you wouldn't have kept that 1.
And I know that's really challenging for some people to do.
Yep.
It is.
I mean, I've felt the urge before. Being like, oh yeah, I got cocked. I gotta go. But
and the dice gods will favor you for being consistent in that manner.
That's very untrue.
I'm trying to make people feel better here, Rick. Come on, work with me.
If you're up on your bucket of chicken sacrifices, maybe. But
yeah. As it stands, I'm in the market for a brand new fresh set of dice because I gave all my dice away to all the people that are never going to want to use those dice ever again. So I've cursed a dozen other people. Yeah, I got a whole bunch more, but I gave away the ones that were sucking.
Maybe.
Nice.
Probably the 3rd or 4th time I've done that, though.
Maybe don't cut yourself and bleed all over this batch, and they'll.
I've never cut myself doing these. There's no cutting.
I thought you got some blood in the red at some point or something. So.
I hope not. No, not this one. Maybe my other red, like my paint for my army red, not the enamel paint. But, dice are so finicky. You just have to be. I will also say that's something to be etiquette wise about. Is, and I'm guilty of this all the time, bitching about your dice.
I do that all the time.
I know it's so hard.
Terrible habit of mine, but I do it all the time.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. You're like, you're just not supposed to, you shouldn't be complaining about your dice, and you shouldn't be complaining about your opponent's dice going hot.
Yeah. It's those things swing, they come around.
Yeah, and I think you have to remember that, and you have to remember that there's averages work out. Sometimes it sucks because your opponent's hot and you killed all your shit before you get to average your dice out somehow. But that's part of the game, right? Is dice go hot and cold.
So how do you guys feel about this?
Oh.
So there are
before you say anything, I think you're going to bring up what I was going to bring up, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so you've made your roll, and I know when we play, it's you pick up your successes and re-roll them. What about players who'd roll other dice that weren't the successes? The same number,
I do that all the time.
Okay.
Right, like I rolled 5 hits. Okay, swipe those aside. Here's 5 dice. Roll them again.
Now, I know in my head the odds are the exact same. But,
I've never done that, so I never even considered doing that.
I always re-roll the ones that were
Yes.
successes.
I find that to be faster.
Because they're right there. Because those are the ones you left on the table.
I think it very much depends on what you're doing. Right, if I'm one-shotting something with a tank and I'm like I roll it in the middle of the table, I'll throw another dice instead of picking that other dice up before I'm done. Does that make sense? Like I think it probably is circumstantial, right? Most of the time I'm probably rolling hits, pulling misses, rolling the hits. Mm-hmm. But I think there's definitely circumstances where I've definitely rolled different dice. That again, though, I again have a pool of singular types of dice. Right, I have one pile of one kind of dice, so it's not like any one dice is different than the other.
Why don't you have different colored dice?
Why don't I have different colored dice?
Yeah.
Are you asking facetiously?
No,
No.
Serious question, because I always have different dice for different weapons. I can roll them all in a pile.
Yeah, so if you have different ranges and
yeah,
stuff like that, different,
yes,
these
I have
reds are
sorry.
4s, blacks are 5s.
I have a few other dice in my collection.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Most of the time,
That's another speed of play thing too. There,
Yep.
for
yeah,
anyone who's curious.
Yes, like if you're rolling an HE with your MMGs, yes, I have one that would be. I can pull one out that would be different than the other.
Right.
ones.
Or
Yes, I have a couple
or
of
the
those.
BARs that are at short range in the.
Yes, most of my units and armies that I've played recently are very uniform. Right, they're all using the same kinds of weapons, and they all don't have mixing of types of weapons.
They're all just gases.
They're all gases. Everything is a gas. Actually, yes. I have 50 gases.
Gases all the way down.
You could probably fit 30 gases if you didn't have any kind of platoon restrictions. How much are they?
I just do an armored platoon with gases.
Do multiple armor platoons of
Yeah,
gases.
gases are expensive.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive.
So
you
Did
might
I-
have some contusions.
You had a different question than Dale. Sounds like I didn't
Yeah.
hit yours.
right, but I guess I'm a mix to just to reply to what was just brought up. In you roll the dice, here are the hits, you re-roll the hits to see how many wounds you get. It depends for me on how many dice I'm rolling. So if I just rolled the gas on and I shot 20 times, if more than half of the dice were hits, then I'll push the misses away and re-roll the hits. If it was fewer, then I leave the hits where they are, because you can always check to see, those were all hits for additional verification, and then I'll scoop up some of the misses and re-roll them. It's just a matter of making sure that everything is visible and you can recheck and stuff like that. So I think that's in those scenarios where I'm rolling a lot of dice. That's kind of how I make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
All right, and it's just a function of everything being as visible and checkable for as long as possible.
Well, as long as you don't have a set of dice that you're rolling to hits and a different set of dice that you're rolling to wounds on.
No, I don't. So.
Yeah, no. That would be, again, that goes back to my point earlier.
Right.
Yes,
that's why I brought it up.
The only time that I find myself rolling a dice, not one of the SNAFU dice, is when I've picked up an order dice and rolled it. So.
Yeah, that absolutely happens.
When you're playing hardcore bolt action, where you roll 3 order dice and you have to choose one of them as your order.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, no thanks. Pass. Hard pass.
The one thing,
and as long as there's no points.
yeah, the one thing that I was going to bring up was more to do with, complaining about the results of your dice that you've rolled and stuff like that. This one is similar to that, but kind of in a different vein. And I'm not going to say that this is an example of poor etiquette, but I think this is something that you might have to be careful with. You're going to have to read the person that you're playing. If you're rooting for results on the dice that they're rolling, right?
Right. No, you're going to foobar.
Right.
Yeah.
I only did that twice and it worked.
So,
Depends on your opponent.
right. I've had 2 games that I've played where I've had and against 2 players that I know really well, and it was kind of a fun, joking kind of thing. But the first time that they were doing it, it kind of caught me off guard because it wasn't something that I had anticipated. And so,
Like when it actually happened.
right,
Whether they wave their hand over where you
right. So I'm rolling up with a flamethrower, and they're really hoping that I'm rolling a 1. So they go 1, roll 1, And it's like,
and you rolled a 1.
I think I did that time too. And
yeah, you're like, that sucks.
But again, it's one of those things where, or an example of kind of an etiquette thing where you might be used to playing a certain way, and that's just your culture, or whatever the case may be. But whoever you're playing with may come across to them in a way that you hadn't anticipated. So I don't know. What do you guys think as far as like?
I think that's a very good point. I think that is actually very challenging too. Like, I mean, it's not challenging. Like, you don't have to cheer for a result. You can be like, "Woof, you missed, sweet." Like, but
I've often probably said it to go for an order test. Like, you can feel free to botch this one for me. It'd really be great.
Yeah.
Is that necessarily bad? I don't know. Is my opponent like, dude, what's wrong with you?
I think it's dependent on your opponent. I think comes down to. I mean, this is probably not
this is a
very prevalent in our field.
Yeah, this is a reading the room one to me.
Yeah, this is like having empathy for your opponent. Right. It's a bit challenging for many gamers because they're not necessarily empathetic people in general. But
we're keeping score too.
At the same,
right?
Yeah,
fair.
The same amount of times, and they're picking up their dice, and they've now announced what they're going to do, and we've all agreed on that, and I'll say, all right, good luck.
Yeah.
I'll do that too. So,
like, I have no problem.
Or be gentle to me. When a gas is pointed at my unit that didn't have an option to go down.
But those are all different things, right? Those are different things, right? Like, cheering for your opponent is different than cheering for a failure, right?
Yes.
Right? Like, being like it. I don't know. I struggle with what you're asking, Dale, because I do think that there's a problem with it in some regard, because I don't think that we should always be. We shouldn't be cheering for our opponents to be failing, right? We should outplay them, but we shouldn't necessarily depend on our opponent's failures, or that we should be excited or cheering for them. But it gives you an opportunity to win, right?
I know a lot of players that are like this. The opposite deal is where they're actually cheering on for you to do well and congratulating your dice rolls and, oh, that's fantastic! Wow, you really clobbered me. And those people have a tendency to always be winning the best sportsman awards. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, being a cheerful loser is always a good thing, but being a cheerful winner is also a good thing.
Sure.
I think there's gracious losing is hard, and that's an etiquette thing too.
I don't think I've ever showed up at a tournament going, gosh, I hope I can pull up best sports.
No, I mean, no.
Unless that's not to say I'm an ass when we're playing, but I'm gonna play tough.
Well, and to be fair, most of the tournaments that's a big deal at, or that we've been to before, like our history with other tournament scenes, there's always guys that show up that are just over the top good people. So you're like, I'm never going to win sports if that guy shows up, right? Because he's always wins the sports awards because he's a kiss ass. I mean, he is. The two that I'm talking about, they both. Actually, one of them was really just a really kind guy. Like, he's super nice. Anyway, needless to say, like, sometimes you're like, yeah, your goal should never be to win the best sports. Yeah.
No,
that
that's
doesn't mean
fine.
You should be an asshole. Yeah.
No, it's okay to try and win best sports at a tournament.
I think it is okay.
I have zero opinion on this because I have never won a best sports, nor will I ever win a best sport. Whether I'm nice or an asshole does not matter. So I have zero opinion.
Not when you bring a bunch of Nebelwerfers.
Yeah, but why would that matter? See, why does that matter for sportsmen, though? It doesn't. But people doesn't. Good, so. Right.
Unfortunately, with sports scores that are player judged.
We say the sportsmanship award, but what that really comes down to is favored opponent is kind of what it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Which is, they are often similar enough, and I think that works out for what we do. But okay, so back to etiquette things about.
Yeah, I was gonna say to pull back into the etiquette. One other thing that I've experienced in games, and it drives me nuts, is when your opponent has their book open and is reading it during the game, not telling you what he's doing or looking for, just simply reading it. It's like that. First of all, you're not paying attention to our game. You're not giving me any of your mental, whatever. You're being distracted in this game, or you're thinking I might have played something wrong, or you played something wrong, and you're checking the rules, and you're not telling me what you're looking for, so that I can understand the same thing. You're just sitting there, just thumbing through the book, and I find that to be horribly distracting.
That's super interesting to me, purely because if someone does that when I'm playing them, I just don't give a fuck. Unless we're holding on their dice and they're like killing and they're wasting our game time.
Wasting time. And
I could care less if they're looking in the book. I just assume they don't know what they're doing, and I'd rather look
as
it
long
up.
as you're just announcing their intention and your intention, and then keep moving.
Yeah, I'm okay with that one.
The only
too.
time I've ever, I don't have a problem with it, and I'm actually probably guilty of this, but that's only because I'm trying to find something that is going to be in the future, not necessarily in the past. I'm not looking for like, oh, you did something wrong, but I'm like, okay,
All right.
I really want to remember how Tank Shock
Or
works. Right.
can I assault out of a building? that's usually what I'm saying.
I mean, that's pretty. Yeah.
And you can.
So.
Right, but what I'm saying is like I'm looking for something that is going to be like.
Okay, so you're saying you don't want to tip your hand by saying, "Oh, I'm looking up how tank shocking works."
Right, exactly. Right, I'm not going to be like, I don't remember how
tanks.
tank shock works, but I also want to like, I'm like, theoretically have an opportunity to use it.
Can I do that?
Can I do that? How does it work? Because I remember how it works because I don't do it.
Yeah, so I had one opponent who literally spent the entire game reading the book and never once said any reason why.
That's just weird. That's
distracting,
different.
but as long as he's
It was distracting.
If he's not slow playing, then I'm kind of like, well, whatever,
He's
Well,
not
he
paying
was up
attention.
until time was called.
See, that's different. If you're slow
That's
playing,
different.
it's like,
right.
get your face out of the
Is
book
he
and let's play the game.
Was he a new player? Newish
Yes.
player? Okay,
Yes,
well,
relatively new.
Yeah, that's a challenge. in
Pandemic
itself.
started.
Did you?
Sure.
So here's an etiquette question. Did you ask him what he was looking up?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I said, "Is there something I can help? I know the book pretty well." He's like, "No."
Yeah, that's just
Okay.
that's just a new player trying to read the book.
Yeah.
Like I get
Well,
I
during
get to-
a tournament game is not the time to learn.
Probably not the
theoretically,
best time. No.
theoretically, you're right. But maybe that's his only hobby time, so he's doubling down. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe he'd learn the rules better by just playing the game. I have no idea.
It's weird. I
But-
agree with you, but like,
Looking up a rule in the game, I don't think is a problem. Reading a book the entire game is a different problem. Like that's a different
Right.
thing. That comes down to not reading the room a little bit.
Yeah.
I have no problem. Again, if my opponent wants to look something up and they don't want to tell me what it is, that's fine, I guess. I'm going to tell them the next time. I was like, oh, how do I reman a transport? Did you ever ask me?
Short answer: you don't.
No, but I really want to know how to do it. Actually, I think I had an opponent do that at WCC.
I had an opponent do it at the thing, and then he moved the transport the same turn. And I was just,
Oh, that's a no-no. You
That's
can't
a
do
big
that.
no-no.
yeah, it was like it was like the 6th turn of the game, and he was already winning, so I didn't say anything. But I was like, "Fuck off, dude."
Don't want to play that.
I was too tired to care at that point.
Okay. Here's another etiquette thing that I think is a challenge. When you lose a game, you need to be a gracious loser. You need to be like, good game. I think the challenge that I have is like always being like, well, if I did these 3 things, I would have won the game. Or if I'd rolled a 6 here, I would have won the game. Giving your opponent the fact that they won the game.
Yeah, don't cheapen their victory.
Right. It definitely cheapens their victory if you say I could have done this and won the game.
Oh, if I'd only done that, I would have beat you. It's like, well, you didn't do that.
Right.
It didn't happen, and I won.
Right. I'll go
You
back
can
and say
reflect on that yourself with your buddies later. Absolutely.
And I'm guilty of this to some degree. I will say that the one that I have been recently bitching about, I actually would have won the game because it was actually a rules problem. But that's a different thing.
We're
but
not
I
going
still
back
think
to that right now.
No.
About that.
no, we don't need to talk about it. But I'm just saying, like, theoretically, you should always be like, dude, you got me. Good game. Like, you don't need to. You can dwell privately and write that shit down so you don't do it the next time, right? You can analyze the shit out of it yourself, but you shouldn't. Again, depending on your opponent, right? If I know my opponent and we want to talk about the game and what we could have done differently, that's a different thing. But if you're at a tournament that you do or don't know this person very well, but you know that they're analyzing the game that way is not always beneficial to your sportsmanship score, so to speak. I don't know. Anyone else agree with that or no?
I mean,
No.
yes and no.
Wait.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
sometimes the best way to unpack a game is to sit there once the result and the game is done. As you put your models away, I think it's pretty common to kind of discuss
Have a little.
a little bit, but there's a way to ask. Well, shoot, what do you think went wrong with it over here? And most players, especially the ones that are really good, are happy to give give their thoughts and things like that. But that's different from at the end of the game going, well, if this had done different, especially if it's a dice result, if I had just rolled this instead, then I would have kicked your ass. I mean, that's a little bit different what you're talking about. But yeah, if someone had done that, it'd be like, yeah, okay, all right, good luck next time with that. So, but that's different than sitting there and discussing. Well, how do you think the left flank went and those kinds of things? So,
yeah, and that's actually a good point. Is like how you discuss it is very different. Right, you're talking from a more humble perspective than a declarative. I should have just done this and I would have won type thing. Is very different from
right. If you just got your ass beat
and
you're trying to find a way to walk away from the table, feeling like you were the better player, that may not be the best way to do it.
Yeah, that's and that's definitely I've definitely seen that and experienced that. So it's kind of like a.
I always find it interesting when you turn. First of all, turn in the results.
Yes.
Before you do any of this.
That's to help the TO.
Be friendly to your TO.
Yes, for sure.
Get him the results as quick as possible so he can process that stuff. And then while you're packing up, I always find it interesting when the opponent's buddy comes over. Is like, well, how'd it go? And then hear his interpretation as he tells his buddy how things went and what things. And to hear that is, I always find somewhat interesting.
Yeah.
More interesting when I have one, but less interesting when he has one.
Yeah.
But that's, winning. Let's face it, winning is more fun than losing. I got to be honest.
Absolutely.
Yes, typically.
Although some of the best games of politics I've had, I've lost. So
they're usually coming down to being super tight games, and that's it's like it's the edge of the knife, one way or the other. Somebody's going to win or lose.
So I'm going to add here, and this is me and why I don't win Best Sportsman's awards. When I finish a game and my opponent's like, it has won. I've lost the game. My opponent's won. And he's like, man, if you'd have just done this, you'd have been so much better. I don't.
Yeah, you have to be careful from that side. Yeah, being patronizing to your losing opponent.
Right. Like it's like, dude, I know you pushed my shit in here. Like I don't need a play-by-play of like everything that went wrong from here. How you would have played the Army so much better, right? It's like, if I ask you, what do you think I could have done better? That's different. But like the unsolicited, God, if you were silly not to do this, it's like, just take your win and walk off, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it again depends on your opponent, whether or not you know them well or not.
Reading the room.
Yeah, it comes down to a lot of that, doesn't it? Like, recognizing what your opponent's going to tolerate and what they want to hear.
I might be bad at that, actually. Now that I think about it, like I might have just won, and I can see that the guy across the table might be a little bit dejected, and I might be like, man, you know what, if this had worked out differently over here, it would have been a completely different result. I think I'm kind of guilty of that, so I should probably work on that.
It's and I think it's more than like, because I've won games and that fight over, this 3-unit fight over here really kind of decided the game. Like, yeah, it did. Is different than like, if you'd have moved this tank up this way more aggressively, you would have won.
Instead of what you did.
Yeah, that's kind of like,
okay, all right.
That's different, right? If it really sucks you foobarred that thing. Like that's that really was that cost you the game.
Yeah.
Is different than if you had done this thing differently.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that because I think you're what you do, Dale. I played against you plenty of times, and we've had conversations after every game, and I think you do a really good job at this. Where you're like, you don't get so analytical, like to that level, right? You said if your left flank had held up better, things would have changed. That's different than being like, well, if you move this unit differently, like that's what I'm saying. Like that's not as play by play and more like
there,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If you had played better, you probably would have won.
Yeah, if you'd roll more sixes, of course you would have won. Like that's like I've definitely had opponents be like, dude, your dice sucked, and I've done that to my opponents who are like, yeah, your dice really failed you, man.
Yeah.
Like that shit happens, and that's not questioning the capabilities of your opponent, right? That's kind of what Jeff is getting at. Is like definitely had, almost, something that makes you sound like you could have done it better if you played it the way I would have played it. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
That's different. That's just a different feeling. I think that makes a big difference in how people would receive it, right?
Yes.
A lot of it is in how you send the message. How's that sound? Like, I don't know.
It also depends if you bought him a beer first or not.
That doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
If you're vying for best sports, buying your opponent that you just beat a beer usually helps a little bit. It usually makes them remember you fondly,
or forget you, which is what you might want.
That works too. Yes, and any one of those things. You can gladly buy me a beer anytime because I will be losing to lots of you.
Right.
That's all it's going to take to get Rick's best sport vote.
Nah, I usually
one will get you to place your show, and two will get you to win.
Yeah, well,
hey, I'm not into buying my votes. I definitely you usually can always go into a tournament and get to the end, and I can analyze all the games I played. And that's definitely the game that was the most fun. I had a good time playing this game. It's usually pretty easy to figure that out.
Yeah.
So, all right, to shift gears a little bit, I remember, Jeff, you had mentioned something last episode about your game with Alistair and how he told you to get your shit off the table or something. Not the politer version of
The
that.
much politer version of that, was keep a clean table.
Please keep a clean table. Yep. Yeah.
So, to me, and we talked about templates and tape measures and stuff, but I think coming up to the table and putting your non-deployed units out on the table and then start deploying from those in the center, I feel is relatively poor form. And I know there's a lot of tournaments where there's no space to set your stuff.
So hard when it comes to that. But yes,
But I would almost prefer, and I hate doing this, but to set them on the floor or on your chair and move them from there.
This is a good
This
reason
is something
why
I
having
do
a display
for sure.
table.
So.
Yeah, this is a good reason to have a display board. Is right. So you put it on the chair. You can have your units. You can go over what's being deployed and what's being reserved.
Yeah.
You can separate them on your display board if it's make sure it's a little bit bigger than your army and just push them apart.
Or put your order dice or an indicator next to what's staying in reserve.
Right. Something, but I agree. I've definitely had tournament games or games where I'm just is that deployed or is it not deployed?
Right.
I don't understand what's going on here, but it gets you confused really quick if you're not paying attention well enough.
That's fair.
Yep. And it's particularly bad with horde armies where there's 100 infantry that all look the same. I had a dude lose his lieutenant. I had a dude lose one of his lieutenants once in the middle of a game. And he couldn't find him for 5 minutes. He's like, "Where's my third lieutenant?" And I was like, "Shit, I don't know. They all look the same to me, man."
He's your lieutenant.
Right?
Yeah, he's your guy, not mine. I don't know what to look for.
I got no idea where he is.
Yeah, I think it's just very good common practice to not have stuff that's not on the table is usually when it can be avoided.
Right.
Another good practice thing too, and this would have probably helped your guy find his lieutenant is on. So I usually always do when I finish the model, I always do the vertical surface of the base. I paint it in black, and then I have a white paint pen, and on the back side, which is usually facing me, I'll write a Roman numeral of which unit they're in, and then also mark if they're an NCO or if they're a lieutenant on the back of them, which is the side that I'm usually looking at.
Right.
I mean, I like that system. It helps you keep track of stuff, but.
My problem is that I end up next army will be there's 10 guys in this unit now. Now I gotta remark all that stuff. I don't know that that's.
Well, I only do it for tournaments.
For a
and
tournament
it doesn't
army,
take
sure.
a whole lot to go back and
Paint
put
over it,
black over it.
Yeah, sure.
It really doesn't.
You're talking to me.
I get around that Pat because I use character models for my lieutenants, so they really stick out.
Yeah. Yeah.
This last tournament was Captain K and the Heidi, the female lieutenant model, and one other one. So it was really clear what my lieutenants were.
Yeah, all my lieutenants have the same pose from the sprue.
That works too.
So usually it's the guy like down in a crouch, and I usually have them. They have binoculars in one hand.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Those are always my NCOs, and then the lieutenants are an entirely different model altogether. So
it's all of these things are very important, and I think it gets back to the fact that understanding your army. There's lots of people I've painted these last week. I don't know what the heck I'm doing at a tournament. Because depending on the tournament, losing your NCOs should not happen.
Losing your lieutenants doubly so.
Yeah. Or more LTs than NCOs because I've lost millions of NCOs. Yep. But that's something you learn with time, right? Is figuring out how to make your NCOs and your LTs stand out.
And if they don't stand out to you, there's not a chance in hell your opponent's going to. So get some of those little markers like the NCO killed thing when you do lose them. That goes a long ways. Tokens are great.
I think my theory in the future is if someone says, "Oh, where's my lieutenant? I can't find him," I'm just gonna be like, "Oh, he must have died. Sorry."
Yeah,
He must have removed
must
him.
have
Pull the
died.
order
Take
dice.
the order dice
He
out for
moved
him.
with an infantry squad for 2 turns. He's dead. Pull the dice.
Yeah, again, very much depends on the tournament.
Oh, so you said order dice. Here we go. Here's one that came up in a conversation I had in a different group. So all your order dice are allegedly in the bag. The turn started. You're pulling dice, and all of a sudden they find, quote unquote, an order dice off of the table. What do you do with that one?
Oh, okay. This is going to get into a different topic that I'd come up or just thought about. But again, I think this depends on the tournament, right? Is this fully competitive or is this more friendly?
Like they left a dice over by their tank that's away from everything else,
right? Or they left a reserve unit dice
something it got left out of the bag. You presume it's unintentional and it's a mistake,
right?
But what should you be doing with that dice? So,
I mean, there's no answer to it specifically, right? There's nothing in the book that tells you what you're supposed to do.
No,
or in
there's not.
A tournament pack or in a referee pack or any of those things doesn't have an answer to this.
Which reminds me, I do have an answer to that. We can't talk about it now, but I will be adding it to my pack when we can talk about it.
Sweet, right up. Okay. This I think comes down to to me this comes down to the tournament.
It comes down to your opponent. Like, you know what? Yeah, you probably should have picked up that dice. It's very obvious that you just forgot about it. But the turn's already started, and in my mind, it's like, as soon as all the dice are in, all the dice here, yes.
How many dice
only come out?
How many dice are in?
I've always done count. I've got this many in my hand, minus my. I started with 14. There's 4 over there. I have 10. Do the same thing to the opponent. Put them in the bag. Boom. Typically what I do at the start of a round. But that doesn't mean everybody does it.
This definitely came up in one of the games that I had with an opponent at WTC. We both forgot to put our reserve dice back in the bag after the first round. And so we were like, well, we both forgot it. Let's just throw them in. I don't know what the right answer is to this because it's actually very challenging because it does impact the game, but I would personally throw the dice back in.
Yeah, well,
I would I look at it. Okay, so my opponent did it, but what happened if I did it? What would I want the result to be if I did it? Right? That's the way I look at it. Is like, okay, whatever I would want is what I'm going to give my opponent. Right? Because in theory, like if it ever happened again, I would hope that it goes the way I want it to, and it was in my way, in my favor.
I generally love this school of like, okay, that sucks. Yeah, you missed it. Throw it in the bag now. We'll keep playing. That being said, if we get to the end of the round and he comes up 1 dice long,
that's a very different challenge. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know how to resolve that.
I think the best way to do it is at in between rounds, and this is part of the cleanup, is you state how many order dice you started with, and you're keeping your order dice lost in a common spot because those are usually secondary or have some value in most games.
And even if they don't, it helps you remember.
Yeah,
like it gives you your count.
Yep, and make sure your count between the dice in your hand and your dice over there are the same. Do the same for your opponent. It can't take more than 30 seconds to do. Totally worth it. That should be the way you do that.
So, not to bring up WTC,
in my humble opinion.
So I had an opponent be like, "I can't find a dice for this unit. It must have been this one that we thought you killed." Put it back in the dice, and it ended up being 1 dice long at the end of the round. I was like, I didn't.
Nope.
I was like, I don't. I was very kind of like, shit. Now what are we going to do about this? And then I was kind of like, fuck it, we're just going to keep moving. But I also like realized that was kind of
that's a cheeky move.
I don't think it was intentional. I honestly don't think it was intentional. Like it was and we had discussed it before. Like I think this was the dice. Put it back in the bag. Like like we both kind of agreed to the first step. So I guess it was a little different, but it was still like at the end it was like, that doesn't feel good. But at the end of the day, it probably didn't change the outcome of that particular game. But I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know what I should have done there. I should have probably done something.
Well, it's hard to do anything after the fact.
Yeah, well, right, but when that happens at the end of a round, if if dice were not being, properly counted.
We solved the mystery of the missing dice.
It's that was really what it came down. Like, hey, there it is. All right, okay. That's kind of weird. You had an extra dice in the bag.
But it's, it's
one of those things. I don't know. I think I would laugh it off in most contexts that
it's
a serious competitive tournament.
And if it happened twice, then I'd be like,
then we are going to be in a different
world.
That's
a trend.
That's a different problem. Again, I don't think there was any ill intent. It just happened, right? It was just like, oh, well, that was the thing, and we moved on. In hindsight, it's like, oh, that's kind of that skews things a little bit.
Yeah.
In that opponent's favor, for sure. But
I always assume ignorance over
Right.
malice.
Yes.
Having played him, I felt like that was just there was no maliciousness there, for
Yes.
sure. I don't know. I think this plays a big part of understanding the tournament that you're into. I think this kind of reads into the next part in here, which is how to be a competitive player at a friendly event. And I think one part of that can be like, depends on how friendly it is, but sometimes do-overs happen, right? Or like oops-a-daisies happen, and that's different at a high-level event versus a low-level event, in my opinion, right? Like, I don't let my opponent like change what they're doing if they've if they've measured, right, or if they moved models. Then we're going to kind of stay with whatever happened. But there's definitely instances where you're like, I'm going to run. No, I'm going to actually advance and shoot, right? Like, there's no hard-nosedness to that in a friendly event. And I think that, I mean, that's my personal belief, right? Is like, okay, well, that's fine. You didn't measure it. I don't care. There are definitely players of the mind that's like, well, you said you were going to run. You're going to run now. And I've never been that player. Maybe that's why I suck. But, I'm willing to. In a friendly event, you're trying to be friendly with your opponent, which means you're trying to play a game together versus trying to beat your opponent. You're still trying to win, but you're not.
That's a key distinction there, Rick. You're trying to play a game together as opposed to just attempting to crush them.
Right. Well, you're still trying to win, but you're trying to play a game with your opponent. Whereas I think at a high-level event, the expectation is that you're going to try and beat each other, and that's still the same game, but it's just a different mentality.
I agree.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you be a competitive player at a friendly event, Dale?
What? How do I...
I mean, I probably asked...
how do I be a competitive player at a friendly event? Bring a list that is within the rules as stated within the pack. So don't cheat when you bring your list.
That's
try to gauge the tone of the event. So, for example, there's apparently a huggy, kissy Care Bear event coming up. And
jeez, who's doing
that? And so instead of iterating on a WTC list for 2023, you should probably do something completely different. But that doesn't mean that you still can't do some iterating on different kinds of units, but maybe just not all of them at the same time. But most importantly, just make sure that you're playing by the rules of the game and the rules of the pack. And encourage everyone else at the table to do the same thing. And then just let everything just kind of play out and have some fun with it. And the competitiveness that you're doing in that kind of a scenario within a friendly tournament, it's not about winning games. It's about, all right, so I've got these 3 units here, and I want to do some, mobile infantry support. So how can I position these in advance in waves? Or you're just trying to work out tactics on the tabletop. So
you're saying treat it like it's a practice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as a competitive player, as I imagine that the top players that go to like the WTC, they're finding a way to make every game a practice game. So
yeah, fair. I mean, every tournament is a lead up to the next tournament, right? So it's not like that's
actually
That's not to.
That's actually a much more concise way to put it, Rick. Well done.
Hey, I'm good for something. Blind squirrel finds a broken clock's right twice a day. Something like that.
Yeah, blind squirrels find nuts every once in a while.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to say.
Blind squirrels right twice a day.
Yes, that is the correct thing.
Does that mean the clock finds nuts too?
I think another distinction in a friendly event is again, friendly events typically bring in players that are a little newer to the game or maybe don't necessarily have the same level of knowledge. They don't know the rule book in and out typically. Not many people do have the knowledge that Pat does. Are you willing to help your opponent understand things better? Like, I think that's another distinction. Like, I'm not necessarily willing to help my opponent in a WTC level event, but I would definitely help my opponent in a friendly game when it.
That's actually an interesting point. I've only ever won Best Sportsman once, and that was the very first North Star that I went to. And I ended up winning it mostly because while it was a competitive event and I was a competitive player, I wasn't trying to win overall. I was just trying to see how it worked out. And I spent quite a bit of my time in the games that I played talking to my opponents, and we were talking about, what's the best move here? And so maybe as a competitive player, that is a really good approach at a friendly event. It's just to table talk with your opponent and see crazy shit happen. So those are fun games.
Yeah. I think that makes you, as a competitive player, that actually would be helping. I don't think it should be unsolicited, but if your opponent wants help understanding what's the optimal choice, like as a competitive player, that's actually beneficial to you,
right?
That was actually
right because that's what your opponent in a high level event is going to do. Here's what here's what an opponent at WTC would do.
Well, see, for me, I always. My philosophy is it's better to ask the right questions to help a person get to a better place than it is to tell them how to get there. And so instead of like, well, here's the optimal, and instead of like directly pointing out what might be the optimal choice, just kind of walk them through it a little bit and like nudge them, kind of, because it's like I said, discovery is always better than. Discovery is always better than just, saying what it is.
Just flat out telling them. Sure. I think, and again, in a tournament scenario where you might be time limited, sometimes discovery would be lovely, but not necessarily capable.
Sure.
I mean, maybe in which you're not going to offer that much help.
That's fair.
But there's definitely times where you're like, well, it's either this unit or your sniper. Like you got, these both are pretty good choices. I'm not sure which one of them's better than the other, right? I might narrow it down, right? Like help them.
I've done I could tell you after the game.
Yeah, fair. You've done that to me before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways to handling it. I think it's just another mindset to have in a friendly event.
I think if you're putting a summary on this is the competitive player at a friendly game is considering this as a practice for himself. So it's in his best interest to have the opponents making good competitive choices against him and helping them learn the game at the same time. Because as you mentioned, these are generally more towards people who are a little less sure about the competitive nature of tournaments, and might be newer to the game, and might just and I think that kind of helps them learn the game as well.
Well, I mean, and I'm even going back and thinking about this, a friendly player, right? They're just two different mindsets, right? Like I'm going to a tournament to have fun versus going to a tournament to win it, right? There's just two different mindsets. Now, like a competitive player can go to a friendly event and be like, I'm just coming here to have fun and learn, like figure out my army or whatever, right? I just think I'm cautious of the new mentality, because there's definitely tournaments where, guys that play bolt action longer than me, but they're definitely more in the friendly category than they are in the competitive side. So
friendly tournaments are a great spot to try out new armies or new elements of an army that you're doing as a competitive player.
I think that's an interesting challenge to some competitive players that are really good. I know John will often take new armies. John Stentz, the person we've talked about a million times, will take a new army to a more friendly event so that he has at least some less competitive advantage. He's still pretty good, but he's learning a new army. He's getting an opportunity to play it. He's having fun, but he's also maybe not, the shoe-in to win it all.
He's not going to play 100 points down in his list, though.
No, for sure not. Why would you do that? that's like patronizing. You don't want to be patronizing.
And
Right.
I guess the important thing. Well, no, that's not fair. That's not right. Something to consider if you're going to a friendly tournament where competitive players show up. Just in the event that they play competitively, that's okay. It may not be completely to the objective, but I feel like, and on Facebook and maybe even a little bit in our Discord, there's been some back and forth. I believe that there is room at friendly tournaments for competitive players in the same way that there is room for friendly players at competitive tournaments. So we just, as players, whether you're on one side or the other, or sometimes the both, I think we're not doing as good as we could at playing nice with someone on the other side, whether you're a competitive player with being with someone friendly and you're just trying to kick their ass, where maybe that's not the most appropriate thing, or you're a friendly player and you're at a competitive tournament and you're getting your ass beat and you're being really sour about the whole experience because maybe you weren't prepared. And so I think that's kind of why we're talking about this a little bit. And I know we're going to dive into the other thing, but it's if a competitive player shows up at the friendly tournament and starts curb stomping everyone, well, let the TO kind of deal with that and don't.
That's their job to manage, for sure.
And do your best.
That's absolutely the TO's job, especially at the list reviewing stage.
Right, and do your best then to not let that kind of get in the way of you playing to whatever your objective was at the tournament, which might have been just to have as many great games as you could. So, yeah.
Right. I think we're probably all over the place here, guys, but there's like all of these nuggets are probably worth mentioning, like you just like understanding as holistically we're talking about all of it. But so then inversely, how do you be a friendly player at a competitive event? I think there's just a different mindset, but I also think everybody should be friendly at a competitive event.
In between rounds, sure.
You can be friendly during the game and not be like. To me, there's a difference between being a nice person, like being friendly, like knowing the person across the table's name, and not burying your face in a book the entire game, is being a friendly player, right? Being someone that's encouraged, like actively engaged in the game and is paying attention, is a friendly player, right? Do I need to let you have take backsies and do things that you shouldn't be able to do in a game? No, absolutely not. We're going to follow the rules in a competitive event. I think there's opportunity for you to be friendly and still competitive.
Yeah, I think back to, and most recently, obviously, the WTC is still fresh wounds. I mean, fresh in my mind. The game I had with Benny for the Denmark 1 guys, which was a spectacular game, and we were both very friendly, and we enjoyed the game thoroughly. And there's he kept moving his howitzers in this one spot and then put them in an ambush. And I'm like, what do you think you're doing with those? And he just looked at me, he's like, I have no idea. I should probably come up with a plan for that, shouldn't I? And just those little quibs in between actions and order dice kind of help keep the tone more friendly.
Right.
And I think overall made the game more enjoyable, although we were both very competitive and played very competitively all through the game. So just those little things in between order dice made that feel more friendly while we're still being competitive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Right. One is not mutually exclusive from the other in this case. And quite honestly, the other way is very true too. Like you said, you could be a competitive player at a friendly event and still be friendly. You're maybe not bringing the hardest list, or you are bringing the hardest list and have an expectation that that's just what it is. I think one of the things is being as a friendly player and going is so to me, this is all about expectations, right? Being a friendly player going to a competitive event, your expectation is you're not going to do well, right? You're not going to necessarily win all your games. You're not going to be they're going to be hard fought games. Hopefully you're not just going to get your butt kicked in, but there are going to be the games where maybe that does happen. You have to expect that as a friendly player, bringing your maybe softer list, have an expectation that these more experienced players might kick your butt, right? Again, expectation is that you're not going to.
So you brought your grease army.
Right. Or you brought your Norway army.
You brought Norwegians.
Yeah. Right. Like, the expectation should not be that you're going to win the event. And I think that's just,
Hey, but great if you do. Wow.
yeah, congratulations if you do, and you beat a bunch of competitive players, and that's totally fine too. I think there's just that challenge. Like, there's a definitely mentality of very softer lists or theater-y lists or very themed lists that don't necessarily do well at a competitive event. And I think your expectation should be like, not everyone's going to bring that themey list, especially in a competitive event, right? You're going to see way harder stuff than you probably were expecting.
You'll probably see some stewards.
No, you will see some stewards. It's not a.
It's just a question of how many dozen.
Yeah, right. That's what it comes down to. Is like, you can go have a good time. Your opponent should be good to you, but don't expect to win a whole lot, which is fine. Like, it's totally fine. You're, as a friendly player, you're probably learning quite a bit, right? You will learn from more competitive players, right? If you want to become more competitive, go play against people that are better than you. That's kind of the old mentality.
Here's a weird gauge I go by. When we're at competitive tournaments, I gauge the friendliness based on the next year I go, and those people who, before the tournament starts or anything, come and strike up a conversation. Hey, we played last year. Oh yeah, I remember how and it's like, I think building that friendship is a different element from competitive tournaments.
Absolutely, yes. And again, you can do that at a competitive tournament. There's nothing saying that won't happen.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's what I'm talking about. Is at the competitive tournament that you
right.
do build a friendship that you then, you go back to a different tournament or you see them in a different tournament and they're like, hey, how's it going, and all this stuff, and they're willing to engage you rather than just like, oh, that guy fucking whooped my ass, I'm gonna stay away from him.
Just put your head down.
That's why that's why marking each game and writing about it and who you played is a big deal, because you can review that. So when you see them the next year, you're going to remember who they were. And
right. Or are you playing your Soviets again?
Yeah.
Or
bring
some new. Or
you haven't moved off
some,
those body armor things yet? Come on, what are you thinking?
And honestly, in a competitive event, that's almost kind of some advantage, is like gaining knowledge on maybe future opponents. Having some understanding of what other people have brought plays a big role in it. Like, there's definitely tournaments where people walk around and look at all the armies and understand them before they're starting to play. I'm not one of those people, but I've definitely seen people do it. See what the new biggest cheese is.
I don't think there's a new cheese at this stage in the development of second edition.
By your guys' standard, then the spearmen are new cheese again. The rule change only that didn't really do anything. I'm not gonna lie. People are bringing Japanese either way.
Yeah, well, it was interesting if you heard some of the breakdown. I think that was Bo and Russ Wright did a nice breakdown, if you catch that on YouTube, about how all the different nations did at the WTC. That was really good. If you guys get a chance to listen to that.
That's one of the few that I haven't watched.
It was really good.
It's really good. And, well, of course, Russ is breaking down. He's got an Excel spreadsheet. He's breaking down, stats and this and that. And while he's doing that, I'm like messaging him. I'm like, can I get that spreadsheet?
Everyone, please get it to us.
I love the stats and numbers. You already did the work. I'd love to go through and see all that breakdown
right.
stuff.
It's nice when
I
someone
like
else,
that.
Yeah.
I like kind of like geek out about numbers. So
I like it when someone else has already made it all into like a visual data chart, so I can just look at the chart and understand it.
Was it Ryan that did that too?
Ryan did that.
Yep. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And he also did a couple of videos on that too, so you guys should check those out too. It's very well, nice and broken down from an outsider's perspective, since obviously he wasn't there.
I would love to see more of that for other tournaments. Like, WTC isn't the only tournament in the world, right? Like, there's definitely other tournaments that would be very that much analysis.
WTC is the outlier tournament for tournaments, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see that for LVO, or if Adepticon gets big enough, like all that would be fun. Right on.
Well, and I think it comes down to the tournament has to publish the list so that they can.
That's the challenge. Yeah, good point actually, because
and then also publishing the results, which is huge. Which I know we talked about running tournaments a few episodes ago, but if we hadn't said it, that's a huge thing for to show your appreciation to your players as a tournament organizer. You should make all those results and lists public for them, because gone is the day of your opponent hands you a list at the table and you get to take it home with you. I find more often than not that between rounds that guy's walking back to grab it. He's like, "That's my only copy." He's like, "What the heck?"
Yeah, so. I definitely I normally print lists for my opponent at every tournament. Still, that's just old school, I think.
And let me caveat that. Give them a very clear, legible list.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
No,
That's
man, you print it in Excel with microfiche and parts of it are blacked out. What are you talking about?
and partially only.
And partial only, that's right, yeah.
And here, you have to make a 30-second decision on how you're going to attack this list.
All right. No, back off the WTC thing. I will say to that point, Pat, one of my favorite things is there was a particular Wapaka, we talked about it a million times, where they would print the results sheets off so we could take them home in the car when we drove home 4.5 miles or 4.5 hours or whatever it was. That was my favorite thing in the whole wide world. Is like we'd get a copy for the car so we could all look at how we did and all the different scoring metrics and shit. Like someone would always get upset about something. So like they missed a point on my paint scores or something.
Yeah, the paint scores were pretty controversial back in the day.
For sure. But that was nice. Like being able to see your results was always fun. So do that as a TO. I don't have anything else to add. I think as a friendly player, you should not be afraid to attend a competitive event. It's just something to consider, right? Don't expect to win it. But by all means, go and learn and have fun. Because you still can have fun. Yeah? Everyone agree with that? Or do you think friendly players should stay out of competitive events?
No. That's a difficult blanket statement.
I mean, that's probably too far, but
right.
Yes.
If you're a friendly player, and by friendly we're talking about competitive players can be friendly and friendly players can be competitive. But competitive players typically are, well, at this point everyone should understand what the difference is. If you're a friendly player and not necessarily interested in the top level pushing your ability and the ability of your list to the max, etc., should you not be interested in events that cater to that style of play? No, there's no reason why anybody can't go to anything. But you should be, in the same way that competitive players who like to play that way, if they're attending a tournament, they should change or update their objectives. Do the same thing for this tournament. But if you really, if that style of play really isn't for you, then you might not want to go to those kinds of tournaments. But if you maybe want to challenge yourself a little bit and see how those things go, come along. You might surprise yourself with how good you are, and you know, the gap between the best players who are playing on that edge and a friendly player who knows the rules and has played a fair number of games isn't as great as you might be afraid of. So that's what I think.
Right on. It's an interesting conversation. I hope nobody's turned off by what we're talking about, though.
And we talked about etiquette. If you struggle with etiquette,
yep.
Like if you complain about your dice, then maybe competitive tournaments aren't for you, because it's really easy when things aren't going your way for whatever reason. If the dice if they start swinging away from you, and then you start complaining, that can be a rough game at that point in time, especially if you're playing against a really good player who's just going to turn on any mistakes that you make. And then you're not having a good time. But the idea is you can have a good time as a friendly player at a competitive tournament if you prepare yourself. In the same way that you, as a competitive player, can have a good time at a friendly event and not ruin other people's days. So that's the objective.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, I think we've covered that pretty much through all of that.
And probably both sides of it.
Yeah, just remember the lessons you learned in kindergarten. You know, let's grow the fuck up and
that's what my kindergarten teacher said. Exactly like that.
And be friends. I mean, we all got little miniatures on the table, and
yeah, it's a game about pushing toys around.
That really is ultimately the thing, right?
Right.
Is we're all playing a game together. We're having fun. We're supposed to be having fun. We should not be taking this shit so seriously that that we can't laugh about it at all.
Right.
I think that's important to remember. Sometimes it's hard to. There are times where it's hard, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
But
we're still
it's
people and humans, and
Yep.
and shit happens 100%. So here's
And we get the competitive itch pops up, and you scratch it.
Yeah. Everyone wants to.
So here's the interesting thing. First of all, happy birthday, Pat.
Oh yeah.
We're actually recording on Pat's birthday, so
Thanks.
you guys should all be especially nice to Pat.
Technically, it's a day late already. It's after midnight.
Fair enough.
Just saying.
And Pat's really close to my age, but what I've discovered is that gaming and how it was looked at in the larger society when I got started 30, 40 years ago has changed a lot. And so more people are starting to game, whether it's miniature games or board games or online games or computer games or handhelds or phones or whatever. And so it's a much wider cultural thing. And what I figured out is that my kids, and they're adults now, 20 to 30 years old, they tell their friends about what I do, and how I play and how I'm on a podcast and how I was able to participate in the WTC. And all of their friends think that that's really cool. And so we all play, and it's a passion. And if you're passionate about something and you can get together socially with other people who are also passionate about it, that's a cool thing that your kids actually grow up looking at and going, you know what, that's actually a really cool thing. And I'm amongst my kids and their friend groups, I'm one of the cooler dads. So embrace that stuff. It's a really kind of cool space to be in. And the more people that we get here, whether they're, more on the competitive side and they're trying to push themselves in their lists, or, it's a friendly thing and we're just excited about sitting down and having a beer and working through some really cool story on the game. The community is big enough for all of us. Let's grow into it together and be fucking adults.
Yeah, right
and then our kids are going to be like, well, what's happening here? And then we can watch them do the same thing, which is, I'm old enough now that there are people who are playing that I could be their dad. So it's,
right. Yeah. Yep.
we're doing this to make the community better. So let's just keep pushing the ball down the road, and you'll be surprised at what it looks like in 5 or 10 years.
And I think the bigger key is that when you see a tournament grow, that you're doing the right things. That tournament, not that tournaments you've been at, the growing size and growing number of players. That's what you ultimately want.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
And I think bolt action is growing in our area. So I'm seeing posts, people looking for games, and oh yeah, I just picked it up, after X number of years playing another game, and where can I get miniatures, and so it's cool. I think it's growing. So.
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to give a quick SNAFU update?
Yeah, we will be having it.
Hey, we're gonna have a SNAFU again. Same weekend as always, right? It's the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Weekend before Thanksgiving, I think is I want to say the 19th through the 21st.
Sounds about right.
Somewhere about there. As we started recording, it was 146 days out.
Totally. Just keep giving me that number, Pat, so I can panic a little bit.
We don't hit panic until we get inside 100.
I will start panicking now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I got to work on I got to work on this table more.
Me too.
A lot more.
So, I think I'd mentioned this before, but I had picked up one of those like the miniatures, like the movie crew sort of thing.
Yeah.
And also in Warlord's recent sale, when I was picking up some prize support, I also did order the little war camera guy too.
Yep.
So those will be used in a capacity that Jeff has yet to completely noodle on. But expect those to be something that will be used. I think we, the four of us, still need to together and brainstorm if we're going to do any sort of change in the actual format. I'm sure it'll still be very close to what it has been. But if we're going to do any tweaking on that, same thing with Recon Rumble. There might be, based on feedback from last year, there might be a little nudge here, nudge there. but overall probably very similar, and we're still expecting that to happen. And of course, we'll still be doing the raffle for Toys for Tots because that's just an awesome charity to do, especially here locally for local players.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to try to work out the logistics on, and this might not happen, so don't quote me too hard on it, but I think we're going to try and do something in the ticket pricing to have lunch provided so that people don't have, first of all, if the hotel allows us to do something of that nature,
Right.
because they do have some kind of food vendors on site, which maybe aren't the greatest.
Well, and we're on the opposite in the hotel of them. It's underwhelming to say the least.
It's something just to have to, and when Rick and I were traveling around with John Ross, and he said that was one of his bullet points is like, don't make people have to go off site to get lunch, because then they're off site, they might not get back in time, they might get picked late, they might have picked the wrong spot that everybody went to and they had to wait 45 minutes to get through and get their food.
They're like scarfing lunch as they're getting back in. That definitely happened. I remember at least one person eating food while they were playing, and I was like, dude, what about the dice, man? Getting greasy shit all over the dice.
So we're gonna try to work within the system there, or and see if we can't do that.
Right on.
And what we like to do, and we did last year, and I know we mentioned this in our podcast back at the time, is that we're probably again Saturday night going to do, some sort of pizza or something for all those that and this will be on the SNAFU Mighty Buck. We'll provide dinner for all those that come from out of town.
Right.
So when you're registering and you're coming from out of town, let us know so we don't have to go around and awkwardly ask everybody.
Oh, you are from out of town.
Oh, you are. Oh,
shit! You came from California.
Right, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, didn't even realize that. Just assumed you're always here. So,
back to what, for those that don't remember or haven't heard or whatever, and you've listened this far somehow, the theme this year is SNAFU Goes to Hollywood, right? You know what we called it? Something like that.
Yep, something along those lines.
Hollywood themed, right? Mm-hmm. So Hollywood movie themed, right? So you're going to bring your Hollywood army. We're going to hopefully have Hollywood themed tables. Lots of World War II movies out there to pick from. So,
Jeff, do you and I still want to sit down and pluck through some of the books and see if some of the named characters might be available for army list selection?
That's right. So stay tuned for that, because I remember us talking about that at some point.
I was reading through some this afternoon, and I'm like, why are they all majors?
I mean, theoretically, we could make our own versions of them that are not all majors. Something.
They're all like majors or tanks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes them epic and badass.
Well, there was one. I think it was in the D-Day 2 book that there was a medic that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That basically, if a unit took casualties, he, as a reaction, if he didn't have an order dice, was allowed to make a move, and if you end up within 6 inches, he could use his medic special rule on them or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
That was an interesting one. So, but again, these will be kind of like there's only one of them, so there's 36 players, only one guy gets that, so maybe Jeff's noodling some sort of award type of thing for him. Who knows? So, just to tease a little bit if we could there.
Cool. All right. Well, this is probably one of our shorter episodes recently. This is not going to be a two-parter tonight, Pat.
No, if they're under 4 hours, I can upload it as one. So
yeah, amazing how that works. I think we can call it a night. Lead us out, Pat.
All right. This is SNAFU. Over and out.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.
I give you a toast, ladies and gentlemen. I give you a toast, ladies and gentlemen. May this fair land we love so well in dignity and freedom dwell. The worlds may change and go awry, while there is still one voice to cry. There'll always be an England while there's a country lane. Wherever there's a cottage small beside a field of grain, there'll always be an England while there's a busy street. Wherever there's a turning wheel, a million marching feet. Red, white, and blue, what does it mean to you? Surely you're proud, shout it aloud, Britain's awake. The Empire too, we can depend on you. Freedom remains, these are the chains nothing can break. There'll always be an England, and England shall be free. If England means as much to you as England means to me.
Which is not as
it's not the
good
live
as
exchange rate. It's whatever he did when he set the price and switch.
Right, so it's a little bit inflated.
So it's always better to buy it in euros.
And just take the 10%. You still take a 10%, like a whatever. It's not 10%. Is it 10%? Depends on what card you're using, I guess.
Well, even at 10%, you're still coming out ahead.
You're right, because it's a $30-some difference right now.
Yep.
40,
that
40.
concludes our economic portion of the episode.
It's actually $40 difference. $42.